is, oh, I didn't know I wasn't on, sorry. An encyclical, which is an official direction by the Catholic Church at that point. And folks, now you can read it on the internet. It's called Laudata, Laudota, comma, C, which means praise be to God. Folks, this is a plan that we've been talking about for 158 years that is now established and recognized by the world's religious leaders. They signed an agreement. You can see it on the internet. If you want to look at it, it's capital COP26. COP26. I don't even know what COP means, but when you get there, you'll see the Islam leaders, the Buddhist leaders, and with their fancy garb paying homage to the Pope. The whole world will follow after the beast. Have we not heard that and read it 100 times? And here it is happening. So he wrote this encyclical, and when you read, I'm not going to ask you to read the whole thing, but it's his outline to save the planet. Originally, he said he had until 2032. Now, we did not want to get into date setting and all that, but I'm just telling what he said. So, paragraph 237 is the one I'm going to ask you to read. Paragraph 237. It's a framework if there was ever a Sunday law. You'll see it. Just read it. Okay. In 2016, he invited the world's religious and political leaders to come to the Vatican for the purpose of making an official call come back in 2017. He did. That was to celebrate what he called the end of the Protestant Reformation, the 500th anniversary. It was also the climax of Pope John the 23rd way back in 1967, and I remember plainly when it was in Time magazine, Newsweek magazine, where it showed originally one church, 12, we all understand, one church through all those ages, established church, and then it's separated into all these subdivisions so that there might be 30 different Baptist churches and, different this, different that. And it showed, though, spreading out on those magazines. And it showed, though, that Pope John's 23rd's plan was to bring them all back together as one. So in 2017, leaders like Joel Osteen, Rick Warren, how many of us have heard Rick Warren in his book, 40 Days of Purpose? Many Adventists have read that book. You can go on the internet. It's not hearsay. You can hear Rick Warren say, after that meeting, the Pope is the leader of all Christians. He's not my leader. He also came away saying that if you love Jesus, you'll love the Pope. So that's what happened in 2017. Then in 2019, the 7-year plan was supposed to be announced. It wasn't. That it was voted, as I said, in November, October, whatever it was this last year. I guess it was May 25th. I'm sorry, May 25th. And it is now in effect. First year, the focus is on the family. How can we say anything about that? The family. The second year, it's on the poor. Later, it goes through different things like finances, education. And you can imagine what's the last one. It's called the ecological spirituality. And that's where the framework comes in from paragraph 237. So that just gives you a quick idea of where we are. And all I'm saying, folks, it's just a free advertisement. I'm here. We're not hearing people talk about it, but it's there, okay? All right, now back to what we're doing here. Let's go to the first statement. We're going to start with exercise. Why exercise? Well, folks, invariably, we bring people in to talk all weekend about diet. They'll come Friday night, Sabbath, and Sunday, and they'll say you need to exercise. Well, that's a general term. And I want to show you, first of all, how it affects heart disease. We'll also mention in regards to type 2 diabetes. It's very interesting that test after test after test shows the extreme importance of physical exercise. We have been made by God to be moving creatures. We're not just made to be, stationary. So let's go to the first picture, okay? I'm going to let Rosalind let me just comment on this. You'll notice that this is across the board in all types of diseases. It's a 4-to-1 ratio if you look at the chart up there. But we're talking specifically about aerobic exercise. Now, why aerobic exercise? Because we're talking about heart disease first. Number one killer in America, along with cancer. Every 30 seconds, somebody falls over and dies in this country or Canada over heart disease. And I'll be showing you in just a few minutes the physiological problem from nutrition. But from exercise, we're talking about your heart. Your heart is it's the pump. We know that. And what's it pumping? The blood with oxygen throughout the body. So if it's clogged from nutrition, I don't know how I'm going to do this. This model, of course, shows an example of our arteries carrying the red blood cells which carry oxygen. Over here, artery moving very slowly because that yellow stuff is what we call plaque. And you're going to find out plaque comes only from cholesterol mainly. Stress is a factor, other things are a factor. But we know that this all comes from animal products. There's virtually no cholesterol in plant foods. The video we're going to show you at the end shows them pulling stuff like this right out of a guy's body. And but what's the relationship to exercise? 4 to 1. Okay, let's go to the next picture. If you've got a regular exercise program, we're going to talk about aerobic, which means movement such as walking or something. You'll see how this unfolds in just a moment. This is referring right now to the rate of deaths today in America, okay? And as you can see, this is looking at men. The normal rate for heart disease is, as you can see, is about 12.4. That means about 12 men in America will die today with some kind of heart problem. Now notice what happens if they have been having some type of regular aerobic exercise. Aerobic means that breathing is involved. I can stand here and move my thumb, and that's exercise, but it's not greatly affecting my heart. So I'm going to unfold this. We're talking about movement such as walking, whatever, as we look at it, okay? But notice that if you just do this, on this test, just 3 days a week, minimum 30 minutes up to 45 minutes. Notice the result. It cut it in more than half. Folks, this is not an accident. I mean, this is, cut the thing in half. Ladies, it's even more important. Look at the next picture. Look at the rate here. There will be 9 women today for some type of heart problems die out of 100. That's an amazing statistic. Of the people that are dying, I don't mean everybody's going to die, but we're talking about of the deaths. Notice, ladies, with a regular aerobic program, it's cut in more than 3 times. It looks like women could almost cut out heart disease just with a simple movement of some type, okay? Now, that's an important and a very important point. Let's look at the next picture. Let's see what we've got on that. This one is really even, in some ways, very significant. This came from Harvard Medical School. It's very interesting that Harvard Medical School seems to lead the country in research on heart disease. This particular study came out around 2013, 2014. And what they discovered was, again, if you're doing 30 minutes of some type of activity of movement for at least 30 minutes, it's going to affect this on a cellular level. You remember when you were in school, you remember the cell that you had to draw and it had a nucleus, and then there was that big word mitochondria. What they know now is the mitochondria controls the blood flow in every cell. Now, folks, we have, 360 million cells or whatever, some large number. Every part of your body, your skin, all the organs, your whole body is made up of cells. That's how God created it. And what we know now from science is that this mitochondria controls the blood flow in every one of those cells. And what they discovered was that if you have this regular exercise program, it will enable double to triple the amount of blood flow in every cell if you actually exercise. Now, that tells you why you're out of breath when you're gasping. If I ask you to go out here and run around this parking lot, And you come back going, I'm dying. Why? Because your body, the cells are screaming for oxygen. Are you following me? Now, we're not just talking about your pulmonary system. I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. But we're talking about your whole body is affected. Blood's going everywhere. And so this is a strong factor. And I'll go ahead and say it now. We're on this picture. We'll say it again later. In regard to reversing diabetes or holding diabetes or keeping it away, keeping your body healthy, they discovered that if you walk for 30 minutes after a meal, it will bring your sugar level back down to where it was before or even below it. Today we didn't do that. Normally you need to do some kind of exercise after you walk. After you eat, like 30 minutes, 20 minutes or something. That's just a free advertisement. If you'll fan a little harder, that'll help me. Thank you. Okay, let's go to the next picture. Okay, would you read that one, Rosalind?
Physical activity and longevity. Relative risk of mortality from all causes in men.
Okay, could you hear that? Could you read that a little bit louder?
Physical activity and longevity. Its relative risk of mortality from all causes in men.
Okay. The length of life is a factor. It's just a fact based on research, okay? Okay, we're going to unfold this a little bit better. In your folder, everybody got a folder, I hope. That's why we sent you outside, was to pick up a folder. And I believe it's on the left side. Well, on the left side, you'll see the everything we're saying and all the pictures, everything else are on this sheet right here. I'm sorry? Yeah, well, that's not what I'm looking for, actually. But this is all the PowerPoints are up here. But on the right-hand side, this is not in the right order, so let's see what the deal is here. Sorry, I'm having to pull these out. Unfortunately, I guess my secretary didn't understand the order. Yeah, what does that say?
It's wellness goals
What?
worksheet. Wellness goals worksheet.
There's another sheet. What is this one, sir? Is that food?
Yeah, this one is the high fiber meals.
Well, I don't see it.
Protein.
Oh, it's the green one. Sorry. Oh, it's the green sheet, lime green on the right-hand side, I believe. Yeah, I meant the right side of the folder. Okay. Well, what I'm looking for is a sheet that compares different activities, and I don't understand how it's not in there. Is that it? No, those are physical. No, this is a comparison, a chart. I cannot believe. What is that one? Yeah, here it is. It's this one with a blue border on one side. Was that on the left or right inside of the folder? The right side? Okay, if you'll look at that, this is comparing different activities, okay? Let's start with walking. That's the simplest form, okay? The most basic form. And when we walk, we don't just walk. Think about it. Your brain automatically sends a signal, goes through your body to your legs, and you walk, okay? But normally, we walk in balance. Usually the opposite arm goes out as we walk. Swinging. Not many of us walk like this. We don't usually go, this way, okay? Normally, obviously, we have to breathe, and the whole object is to develop a program for you that's called an aerobic exercise plan, okay? And I'm going to go through this, folks, as simply as I can, and it's very difficult here holding this microphone to do all this, but I'm going to do the best I can. No, it's fine. I said I'm going to do the best I can. I don't know if I will. What we're talking about is finding your resting pulse rate. So we're going to do that right now, and I'm going to ask Rosalind, do you have a 30-second thing on your watch or something? So everybody find your pulse rate. Usually you can use your fingers, not your thumb, on your wrist. You can also use the inside of your neck. You can use it on the inside of your arm. I need you to find your pulse rate right now, okay? So everybody check and see if you can see if your heart is beating. The heart is pumping blood through your body, and that's what you feel is your pulse. Is there anybody that hasn't found it? Okay? What she's going to do in a moment, she's going to say, ready, set, go, and everybody's going to not count out loud, but I want you to count each one of your heart rate. We want to find out what your resting heart rate is, okay? Now, it's true we just ate. It's true you came upstairs, so this may not be perfect. But you can do this later whenever you know that have not been some activity. So she's going to tell you, and Rosalind, if you don't mind, just say ready, set, go when you're ready.
Oh, shucks. Okay, ready, start, go.
Stop. Okay, if you can double that either in your mind or whatever you need to do there, if it's 30, it's 60, if it's 35, it's 70, if it's 40, it's 80. The normal rate for women is around 80. Men's is usually a little bit lower, 72 to 75, around 73. But folks, what I want to do, we're talking about how do you find a plan to do better than you're doing, okay? Now, you know whether you have a regular program, 3 days at least a week, but preferably every day of some kind of walking, okay? We're going to develop this a little bit more as we go along, all right? So, what you want to do is write down your goal, what your resting pulse rate is, and then I'm going to give you my recommendation. Dr. Meyer at Southern Adventist College does it a little bit more than mine, but I have to be a little bit more careful because he has people come to him at the college. We've had people from the conference office go there to develop a plan. So he kind of knows their age and maybe condition, whatever. When I go into a church like this, there's going to be some of us that we have to be very careful. And I normally tell you to check with your doctor if you're over 40 years of age to see, can you have an exercise, an aerobic plan, okay? And you got to be careful, folks. I had a cousin, 33 years of age, that fell over and died with a heart attack. We need to know what our situation is regarding our body. And we need to get tests at least every 2 years. Older people, I think it ought to be every year. But I have to be careful, okay? So if you know you have a heart condition, please take my words of advice carefully. But what Dr. Meyer does, he usually starts and allows them to get their heart rate up a little bit more. And I want to show you a chart that, can you come up and help me hold this? And then Rosalind, can you come over to help read, or maybe he doesn't have a microphone. Now this is based on a lot of, they can't see this at all, so you can read it to them. This is based on a lot of research, heavy research, on what's normal, which is all right for the normal people who don't have any heart problems, okay? Now, let's just start with the age 20 right here. You'll see the training zone for a person that's 20 is between 110 and 140. Now, folks, let's just say your heart rate right now is 80, okay? If you doubled that, it'd be 160. I think you can see what I'm saying. It's very dangerous, even though this is all this research, and you can see, I'm going to let her read it, and then I'll give you more advice. Age 30, what does it say, Rosalind?
133, age 40, 126, age 50,
Okay, no, read the two comparison, like age 30 between this and this.
162
To 133?
to 133.
Okay, that's the range. Okay,
Age 40,
40?
153 to 126. Age 50, 145 to 119. Age 60, 136 to 112. Age 70, 128 to 105. Age 80, 119 to 97.
Okay, as you can see, it comes down. Now, I'm going to use myself as an example a few times here today. Now, you can just put it in the chart. My resting pulse rate used to be about like the average male's. It's all right, go ahead. No, you go across. Come here, where are you going? Okay. My resting pulse rate used to be about 70, 72, 73. But a number of years ago, I decided to start a regular exercise program. And since then, and I'm talking about the last 20 years, I'm 50, I'm 80 now, and I've run in 3 half marathons, that's 13 miles or something. But you train for it. And folks, you can set these goals, what I just told you. Now, what I'm going to recommend is that you only find your heart rate to about 20 beats or maximum of 30 over whatever it was. You saw the chart, but that's too dangerous in a group like this. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, if you know, when you get home, write down what you saw if you're interested. Now, if you're interested in staying where you are, then you can go to sleep, because I'm going to talk about it in a few minutes. But just set if your resting pulse rate is 75, then don't let it get over 95. What do I mean by that? Well, go on a level territory somewhere. I don't know if it's a track somewhere, wherever it's level ground, and walk. Let's just say that you normally walk at this pace. Now, one of the charts I was looking for, and I don't know the one we had, I wanted to comment on. Where was that one I had in my hand? I'm sorry, folks, I cannot see. No, you handed it to me, Rosalind. What did I do with it? The one that I said had a blue border on the side. We just had it. Right here it is. What does that say at the top?
In-step aerobic miles.
What?
In-step aerobic.
In-step. About 25 years ago, I created what was called the In-Step program for Georgia Cumberland Conference. I've been on the North American Division Health Committee for about 25 years. And so because of what we did in this conference, they did it all over America. And on the In-Step program, our goal then was to get everybody in this conference walking. And so it was called In-Step. At the NAD level, they called it Adventist In-Step. Okay, what I want you to do is look at this chart right now. And because it's somewhere there, I don't know if it's on the left or right, it's got a blue border on it. And I want you to tell me what it says is the easy score on the left side of the scores for walking. 24 minutes. An easy score would be 24 minutes to walk a mile, and it would be just about this pace right here. At this pace, it would take you 24 minutes to walk a mile, okay? Now, compare that to gardening down at the bottom. Find gardening. And what is the score for gardening? Easy score. 60 minutes. So with a garden, you'd be using your arms a lot, and of course moving some, but it says to equate the body expenditure of oxygen. You understand what I'm saying? The body expenditure of oxygen. Walking at this pace, 23 minutes, to equate that in the garden, you'd have to work 60 minutes. And it doesn't mean to stop and talk to your neighbors about politics or sports or religion or something else. You keep working for 60 minutes. Now, ignore the middle score and go to the vigorous on the outside. What's the vigorous for walking? It's a 15 minutes. That's a 4-mile-an-hour pace. That's just about like this right here. If you walk at this pace for 15 minutes, you should cover a mile. Now, you understand what I'm saying? Now look at gardening again, and to equate that, what do you got to do? 30 minutes, which means you got to work about twice as fast. You see what we're talking about? Now, there's a lot of other activities there you can compare it to. I just compared those two. Back to walking. So, what I'm asking is that you find level ground somewhere. You know your resting heart rate is 75 or whatever it was a moment ago. So how fast do you need to go to speed it up to just 20 heartbeats and no more than 30? You're going to have to do it. I mean, I can't do it because I can't be here every day, whatever. But what you do is, if you know you're walking that pace, walk just a little faster or a little farther. But it's normally just walk a little faster. Now, what did I mean by farther? Well, if you're normally walking from here to that pole, maybe go over there and back to this pole. Now, you got to be careful. My sister-in-law, 70-something years old, had a tremendous heart attack. They had to bring her back alive 4 times. She was a nurse working in New Mexico in a hospital. And so she had to come live with us. And so I said one day, okay, I'm going to find out what your pulse rate is and what we can do here. So I figured it out. And I said, all I want you to do, in the room where she's living is about from here to that pole. I said, I want you just to walk across there and back 2 times. I checked her pulse. It was up just a little. So I knew it was safe to get it a little bit more. I just wanted it about 10 in her case because she's a heart patient. So she did. So she knew that she was supposed to move just a little bit faster, or instead of going 1 time and back, maybe go 2 times and back. Do you understand the difference? Speed or longevity. It'll equal the same. I came home one day from the office. She said, I don't feel good. I'm tired. I said, why? She said, I felt so good, I walked to the end of the driveway back a number of times. I said, I specifically told you not to do that. So sometimes we feel great. No, don't let that be the factor. I promise you, if you will do this 3 times a week for 3 weeks, you will see a change. I've seen it. In training for the last half marathon last year, I actually changed what I was doing. My son, I'm from the old school. I coached back in football and basketball and stuff. I had a girl go to the Junior Olympics back in the 1960s. So I'm from the old school. You go hard as you can go. You come out, you go hard as you can go. Well, things have changed. Have you heard of interval training? Or intermittent training? Interval training means exactly what it says. You're altering the speeds. And my son said, Dad, it really works. So I decided to try it. So I started running sprints, maybe like, say, 100 yards as hard as I could run, jog back, maybe even walk a little bit in between. And believe it or not, folks, it worked. In a few weeks, I could tell the difference. I was getting my heart rate down. So my heart rate now is between 52 and 60 instead of 72. And if my heart could speak, I think it would say, thank you, EW. I'm getting to rest about 15 extra beats every minute. Over a lifetime, that's a lot of beats, isn't it? Hello? So, what did I say? Just try to get and once you get it established, you'll know how fast to walk. That is your action plan. I would say do it for about 3 weeks a minimum, and maybe 4 weeks, and then you can probably go maybe just a little bit. If it's 20 beats, maybe you can take it up to 10 or start going faster, and your body will adjust. What did I say? Your body will adjust, okay? How many of you will at least think about doing something for your heart as far as walking? Now, there's all kinds of things there you can do besides walking. That's the simplest to start with. You can ride a bicycle. I don't like treadmills, but sometimes, that's something that you do. And you might want some variety. Something I've started doing right now, since I've taken karate, I like to do a lot of kicking and punching on a punching bag. So I decided to do a trick. In a boxing ring, they box for 3 minutes. So I work out for 3 minutes on the punching bag. Then I get on a treadmill, which I hate, but I run for 3 minutes at various speeds. I may run 4.5 or 5 miles an hour, but then I get up to 6 or 7 miles an hour, which is pretty fast for my age, for about 30 seconds or a minute. and I alter the speeds. Why? Because research shows that altering speeds works. Interval training works. Believe it or not, intermittent works, and I don't know how. And that means you could work out for 10 minutes this morning, and 10 minutes this afternoon, and 10 minutes tonight, and it's just as good as going and doing it for 30 minutes. So you see, we don't have to have an excuse, do we? Find, figure out a plan where you can walk or whatever you're going to do at least 3 times a week, totaling 30 minutes. How many of you at least will think about that and try it? How many of you are asleep? How many don't care? No, I'm just joking. That's all I have got time, folks, to challenge you for on this aerobic exercise. But I'll give you an example of what can happen. In Murphy, North Carolina church, the school was doing an aerobic equivalency walk to Alaska and back. Every day the school was walking. The principal had them walking around the trail, up in the woods, round and around. We went up and filmed them from the conference office. 4,000 miles. And there was a lady. She said, I want her to be part of this. So, doctors, by the way, she was in a terrible car wreck. Doctor said, you probably will never walk again. So she said, her name was Debbie, and she said, I took my crutches. And she said, I just was able to walk like this out to my mailbox, just 60, 70, 80 feet and back. She said, I found I could actually walk a little bit like that. So she said, I decided to do that for like 3 weeks. Then I decided to go 2 times. She found out she could. Finally, she went to 3 times. When we went up there to film, folks, she was walking 5 to 6 miles without her crutches. And I was at that very church 2 years ago. I said, is Debbie here? Yes, and I'm still walking. Praise God. I mean, I'm just telling you, folks. Again, Luke 1:17, nothing is impossible for God, and it's not impossible for us. It's right up here. Are we willing to put out the effort? Now, I don't know about you. Yes, I'm 80. I may fall over and die in the next minute, but at least I feel good right now. And I don't understand accepting not feeling good. I'm going to say it the way I think it. Now, if you want to challenge me, come on up here. But I believe that some of us men are lazy. Now, some women may be lazy too, but I'm saying what I've seen in my research all over the place. Our women seem to be in better shape than our men. I'm talking about the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I've seen ladies after ladies say, well, I'm trying to get my husband to walking, and she can walk a mile in 15 minutes, and it takes him 30 minutes to walk the same distance. And so she says, well, I'm going to walk with him. Okay, that's good to help him, but it's not helping her. You see what I'm saying? Because she's not getting her body to the level she needs to. So I don't know what to say. I know you women cannot go out by yourself on these streets or anywhere else and run. I understand that. Well, of course, I don't know if you do anything here in Atlanta. But anyway, you understand what I'm saying? Find a partner or something. But we need to have somebody hold us to setting a plan and doing it. You don't get up. It happened this week. For some reason, I didn't feel good. I'm human, you know what I mean? And I said, I'm going to go run anyway. Guess what? Came back, I felt great. Folks, I'm telling you, once you get in shape, you will feel better when you get through, okay? Now, getting there, please do not try to go too fast, too far, because then you'll say, I'll never do that again. They'll just kill me. Okay, I can't be on that any longer. Are there any quick questions? Okay, I hope if I come back here in another year, and you can say, guess what? It really works. I know it works. All right, next category. Let's go to the next slide if you don't mind. Okay, go ahead. We've already commented on that one. What does that one say? Yeah, I'll keep going. Okay, right here. We have, and I have a chart here, but I won't bother to open it up. You probably can't see it anyway. Our body is covered with muscles. Okay? God has done that for a purpose. He wanted us to be able to move and move freely. And so we have what I normally say are 63 major muscles, although the body is covered with muscles. Some of them are in pairs, some of them are singular. Like the muscle here is called rectus abdominis. It's basically one big muscle here in this area, okay? Your biceps, the muscles here, are 2 muscles. Two strips of muscles there, and they're there for a reason. So God has that, so you can actually lift your arm this way if you need to lift something. okay? On the back are triple. There's 3 muscles, one on each side. One here, one in the middle, one over here. Now, I'm going to ask him if he'll feel and tell you what he feels right here. What'd you say?
Jelly.
What? Jelly? I'm going to take care of him first. I think you better feel again.
Oh, you're fake, man. You're
No, that sounds like a threat to me instead. We have the muscles. Okay, so what do we do? When was the last time you ever heard somebody come in here and talk about strength training? All right, let's show the next picture, please. Let's go forward. I don't think that's the one. Just keep going. We'll get to it in a moment. Keep going. All right, right there. This was a large study, over 100,000 people, 12 categories. I'm just going to show you 8 just for the sake of time. And what it was to test them on these different categories, as you can see. Now, the first category up there is what? Heavy housework? Okay. Heavy housework. It's very interesting, something about my wife and I. We've been married, I think, 57 years, 58. We just went through June, I don't know what, 57 something. It's very interesting. Never once in our lifetime did we ever discuss doing certain things in the house. I didn't have any sisters, so I always liked to help my mother by cleaning the house and that type of stuff, so I just always started running the vacuum and cleaning and that kind of stuff. Never once, I don't think since we've gotten married, have I washed clothes. I had to do it when I was in college, and it's just something we do. Now, I don't ask you why I brought that up, except that I've discovered that when you're cleaning a house, sometimes you got to move a little bit of something, and it takes a little bit of strength, okay? I don't even care if it's a vacuum. You got to move your arm, and if you're mopping, you got to do all this stuff. Look at this. If you've done regular strength training, now what do I mean by that? Okay, I'm glad you asked. Let's say that you want to strengthen your biceps. Then you've got to do something besides than thinking about it. So I want everybody to stand up. Come on, let's go, stand up. Now, I'm going to use this microphone over like this. I want your hands this way with your hands up, okay? Now, what we're going to do is act like we're lifting weights. Now, there's a little secret in here, and that is that I'm going to ask you a question. How many think you breathe in when you lift? How many think you breathe out when you lift? How many think you breathe in when you lift? How many breathe out? How many aren't thinking? Okay. Now, I'm going to ask my friend to come back up here since he just made fun of me. Okay, would you mind stepping over here, sir? Ooh, he's got some real muscles. I got to be careful here. Wow, that's impressive. Doesn't scare me, but it's impressive. Okay. Okay, I'm going to act like he's an automobile, okay? And he's blocking getting into the building here, so I'm going to turn you this way if you don't mind. So now if I'm going to push, I'm the only one out there to push this car out of the way. Am I going to take a breath in as I push, or am I going to breathe out? Am I going to go like this where I breathe in, where I go, no, what am I going to do? I'm going to breathe out. I'm going to go, and push out. Thank you, sir. I will be more patient. You got some good muscles. But again, it doesn't scare me. Okay. All right. Now, folks, here's the point. Exertion out. Okay, so we've got our hands here. I want you to act like you've got something bigger than a piece of paper to start a regular strength training at home, because I'm going to show you the value up here in just a moment. But this is what we're talking about. So let's say that you got 5 pounds of dumbbell or something, okay? So take a deep breath. Now breathe out as you lift. All right, breathe in as you go down. Folks, just do 8 times 3 of those every day with some kind of weight, bigger than what you've got. And obviously, he's either worked or lifted exercise or something because he's got some good muscles. Now, I can't tell his age. I don't know if he's 20 or 50, but anyway, I'm just joking. He's got good arm. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, go ahead and sit back down. We'll get back up in a minute. Now, look at this up here. Strength. Look at heavy housework. If you do this regularly, and by the way, they also make a little gadget now that you can pin on your door, and you can do either pull-ups or part pull-ups where you put your feet in there and pull up. That'll do it. And in my case, I do, and we've got a chart It's on the right-hand side now. This is the one that we were thumbing through here a moment ago. It's called strength training. You'll see it. It looks something like this. A lot of different ways. You'll see sit-ups. And then when you were in school, you did those kind of things. If you cannot do any sit-ups, and that's to strengthen your abdominal muscle here. Excuse me. Normally, no, that's okay. Normally, back when I was a long time ago, they had their hands this way. Then they changed it and put their arms. Well, I don't even care about that. If you can get, let's say you're on the floor on a pillow or something, put your arms back like this and just come up halfway. That'll make it a little easier. Can you do one? Well, see what you can do. If you can do half of one, you'll start strengthening. Eventually, you can do 2. Eventually, you can do 10. Eventually, you can do, I used to do 700, but for the sake of time now, I just try to do, 100 3 or 4 times a week, and whatever. Push-ups is on there, and it shows modified push-ups where you can be on your knees, your back straight, whatever. Can you do 1? Now, this is going to strengthen your shoulders, not your biceps, okay? Now, your triceps, there's a number of ways you can work with triceps. I mean, you can go to these fancy places where you've got machines, and those are a lot easier. But if you don't have that and you've got dumbbells, there's 2 or 3 things you can do. I mean, this one you got to be careful of. You can really get hurt. But if you're going to lift it this way, if it's 5 pounds, make sure you hold it with your arm. If you do this, you're cheating and you're using some other muscles. You understand what I'm saying? So you don't want to move the whole thing. That's the same way with this right here. When we did the bicep a moment ago, you don't want to go. See what you're doing, you're not really helping that muscle much. So hold over still. I will say this, we had a guy in Tennessee who won a state championship for his age. I mean, he's like 50 or 60. And when they do that, they actually start this way right here. And then they simply must extend the weight all the way back. But I don't care what you do, just think about all your muscles, okay? The muscles in your leg, you got to be careful. Now, you've got 3 muscles in your leg. You can feel them, but I'm not going to embarrass him by having to feel my leg. And I could wear shorts, but who wants to see an 80-year-old man's legs? Nobody. So, but it's important. So, now I'm against deep knee bends. I know that we used to do it in school, but it's too easy to somebody in here can mess up your knees. The easiest way to do it is to go against a wall. And against the wall, you can just simply stand there. It's an isometric exercise, which doesn't take a lot of oxygen. You just stand here with your knees bent and see how long you can hold it with your knees bent. It doesn't take a lot of oxygen, okay, because you're breathing, you're not, And can you hold it 10 seconds? Can you hold it 30 seconds? That's an easy way to do that. Now, there's a lot of other ways to do all kind of things. I'm just covering the big basic things, okay? Okay, now let's go back up to our chart. If you've been doing regular biceps, notice the difference between the 2 outside. It's almost a 2.5 times better doing housework if you've been doing regular training. Do you see that? Do you see my point? If you've been doing regular training, then it's going to make it more than half easy, if you want to say it that way. Okay, let's look at the next category. The ability to walk. Is it a walk a mile?
Half a mile.
Half a mile. Okay. So again, your legs are going to be a factor. You see people in a nursing home and they can barely move. What's wrong? The muscles usually, what we say, atrophy. They just simply have lost their strength. Today, physical therapists are going in and giving them a lot of help. Now, if you're a physical therapist, please don't raise your hand. But I was in a church a few weeks ago, and I knew he was there because he pointed it out as soon as I got there. I think he wanted to let me know he was an expert. And so when I was talking about this the afternoon, I said, sir, you're a physical therapist. Why don't you start a program training here for the church? And he said, I will for $50 an hour. And I think he was joking, actually, I hope. But anyway, folks, think about this. The stronger your legs, the less effort it's going to take. So look at the chart. What does it say? I can't even see it. Between the 2 outside, is it about 2 to 1 or something? Is it, Rosalind, what does it look like? Does it have a figure at the bottom of the second chart?
Walk half a mile?
Yeah.
Okay, walk up 10 steps is the second one.
Walk up 10 steps is the second one?
No,
I'm still talking about walking a half a mile. Look at the 2 charts there, and you can see, I can't see it, but I know it's about, again, twice as far or twice as easy, if you want to say it that way, okay? All right, the next one's walking up 10 steps, okay? Now you begin to see, I don't want to take a lot more time, all the way across. What is the next one besides walking up the steps?
10 pounds.
Do what?
Lift 10 pounds.
Okay, well, so you can see all the way across, it's the same. All right, let's go to the next picture, sir, if you don't mind. Okay, the first thing?
Dressing.
Okay, right across, what's the next one?
Bathing.
So you can see all the way across, it's either double, triple, or 4 times better in 8 categories. And by the way, the next to the last one there, somebody at the office said it's the one, the ability to get on and off the toilet by yourself. And she said, boy, that really is impressive, because if you're in good shape, it's not easier. And the last one actually is eating. That's mainly raising your arm, okay? Okay, how many of you will think about a regular strength training program? At least think about it. Now, thinking means to devise a plan. There's one thing I don't like, and it comes from my coaching days long ago. I don't like excuses, and I don't like lack of planning. Because if you don't plan, you're going to plan to fail. I tell our leaders that all the time. If she's been to a Health Ministries Landing training, I've said that. We have to schedule, folks. This is a habit. It is a habit. You get up in the morning from, I don't feel like doing anything today. Well, do it anyway, unless you're sick. Now, you can miss occasionally, but you understand what I'm talking about. Are you following me? Okay. Now we're going to talk about the last category. And the last category is flexibility. Flexibility is stretching. We basically call stretching. And that's because your muscles are fastened to bones with tendons, what we call tendons, or ligaments from muscle to muscle. And these are all factors. They're all part of your body, and these things are important. Now, I don't know if you follow sports or not, but it's very interesting of what's happening in the sports world today. When I was a kid, they told us back then that you did not try to throw a curveball. Now, when you throw a curveball in baseball, how many of you know something about baseball? How many of you are awake? I don't see hardly any hands going up. None of y'all know anything about baseball? That's interesting. Well, we can talk about basketball in just a minute. But on throwing a ball back then, to throw a curveball, a ball just straight, usually your hand comes this way, okay? But if it's a curveball, you're trying to put spin on the ball, which means you've got to do it this way with your arm. So back then they said, don't do that until you're much older. Today, we've got kids throwing the ball extremely hard, doing all kind of stuff. So in the major leagues of baseball, they're now throwing the ball over 100 miles an hour, most of them over 95. And they're having all kind of injuries, all kind of arm problems. Some of these guys are out for a long period of time. And I think it's because of starting too young. Their bodies are just there's too many weaknesses. And it's just crazy. That's all I can say. It's just crazy. But so don't start out too quickly, and on flexibility we're going to talk about right now. If I had a rubber band and I put a rubber band in a freezer and pull that rubber band out in the morning, what will happen to it? Yeah. So my question now is, if you're going to talk about stretching, do you do it before you exercise or after? Now be careful, because there's a little bit of a trick question there. Normally we would say before. But I just said, if you jump out of a freezer in the morning and start stretching, what's going to happen to your muscles? You're going to snap them. Normally, you've moved around some during the day, okay? There's been some research that shows that you're all actually accomplish more with your body if you do exercise in the morning. And I'm not sure why that research says that, but that has been some people have shown, not a great deal. I've leaned a lot more on Harvard Medical School and organizations like that. You got people out there that'll say anything, you know what I'm saying? So, the point is, we want to stretch. All right, stand up, and you've got a chart there showing all kind of ways to stretch, but we're going to try to get you just a few things. Stretching doesn't mean bouncing. For example, if you want to see how far you can reach to the floor, don't try to break your back and pull muscles by trying to put your hand all the way on the floor, especially since we've not been moving around very much. Now, your body operates off of heat. It really does. That's how God's made it. Once you move around, it's more supple, if you want to say it that way, with your muscles. But here we're talking about our tendons and ligaments. So you could go down this way, but where you are, you may hit your head. So let's talk about some stretches you can do right now. You can turn your arm this way, and you're stretching now. The back of your arm is what you're stretching. This arm right here, the tricep area, okay? Do the other arm. Don't hit her in the head, please. In the same way. Okay. Now, I want you to turn, face this way, so you don't hit anybody. Although, well, I guess you probably will, unless you move forward. I tell you what, use your elbows like this, maybe you won't hit anybody. What we're going to do is practice turning and stretching. Do not move your feet. Keep your feet flat on the floor. Do not go so far that it hurts your legs. That's a good way to pull muscles. You know what I'm saying? But if you'll hold it, what you do is hold these things for a count of 3 or 4 or 5. It's not bounce. You don't go boom, boom. I want you to stretch it where you're holding it. That makes it a little more supple, okay? All right. Now, you can also do the same thing with your, by the way, on this one, and I do, after I've done my sit-ups, weightlifting, and those things in the morning, and by the way, you do it every other day on the weightlifting. I forgot to say that earlier. There's a reason for that. The fact that your muscles grow is because you actually tear down the cells a little bit, so when they grow back a little bigger. It's an interesting situation. So if you're lifting weights, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, something like that, okay? And a lot of people go to the gym, they may do legs today and arms tomorrow, that type of thing, okay? Okay, back to the stretching. So you can do this after you've done those things in the morning a little bit. All right, let's just take your neck. How are you going to stretch your neck? All right, lay your head over on the right-hand side, just like this, and just hold it there. Don't bounce. Okay, you could count. All right, do the same thing on the left side. And you may feel a little stretching or a little tightness in here, okay? Now this time, turn and look to the side. And keep your chin down. Don't lean your head. Right now, if I look straight to the right, now look straight to the left with your chin down, you'll feel that's something. Now this time, I want you to do it a little differently. I want you to turn, see how far you can turn your head around, and then lay your ear over on your back. Just hold it there. All right, good. Now I can tell you're laughing, you're feeling a little different pain, okay? Look straight ahead, look to the left, chin's down, and then lay your left ear over on your back. That's just simple little things, folks. You can come up with all kind of things. I mean, you see people in the morning stretching out this way, stretching out this way, stretching over to the side, stretching over to the side, coming up this way right here. Do this right now, but don't hurt yourself. Just come up. Don't try to go so far as you pull. You're stretching your shoulders here, and the pectoralis major and minor around here. You're actually stretching that some. Okay? Very good. Just invent some things. Now, believe it or not, even though I'm legally blind, and I can't even see your face if I'm looking at you, I do still play golf. And because I can see peripherally. See, I'm looking at her, but I actually see him looking at me. When I look at him, I don't even see his face. So it's just crazy stuff with your eyes. I can't drive anymore, but I still play golf. So sometimes I practice a swing where I maybe just come back and hold, and here's the stretching. Look at my knee. Look at my left knee where it is. See, I'm stretching my leg and my arm the same way. So then when I finish the golf swing, look what I'm doing. I'm stretching out both ways. So I don't know if you could hear all that, but my point is invent some different kind of ways to stretch, okay? All right, you can sit down. And I'm going to ask you a quick question. How many of you will think about adding flexibility stretching to your exercise program? Now, folks, most of you are raising your hands, as far as I can see, and that's not very far, but no, I'm just joking. Folks, this is how you change your body. Now, what you're going to see when in a few minutes is that almost every one of the diseases and the healthy immune system, almost every category lists exercise as one of the most important factor. And let me come back before we take a break on the pulmonary system. That's your lungs, the pulmonary system, all the system of breathing. Unfortunately, and I hoped I could do it here, but I couldn't if I wanted to. There's a little gadget you can buy at a drugstore, and you just simply breathe into it, and it has a little scale, and it can show you what your score is, and it's used sometimes for people that have breathing problems or asthma and that type of thing. But the PFR, it's the pulmonary rate index, PRI. I don't know what I said. PRI, the pulmonary rate index. For men, it's 330. Women's is 330. Men's 350, women's 330. And you know what mine is? And I'm not bragging, I'm just stating a fact. Mine, last time I checked, it was over 1,000. Now, why is that important when we get here in a few minutes to talk about the immune system? Because most all the serious health problems are coming from the lungs and the pulmonary system. And so technically, the higher your score, the better off chance you've got to deal with this issue. All right, we're going to take a break for about, right now it's 3:15, so we're getting pretty close to schedule. We're just going to take a 10-minute break. Why don't y'all go outside and just walk down to the school and back? Wouldn't that be nice? And then come back in 10 minutes, okay? Please, let's get up and move, people. Don't just sit. We've been sitting here all day. Let's go out and walk. Does that sound like a coach? Here we go now. Please, here, let's go. Folks, come on in and sit down, please. I'm going to, just a minute. If you did not get a ticket, raise your hand. When you came in, did you not get a ticket? Rosalind will bring you one. Just hold your hand up really high so she can see you.
That's just a raffle we'll be having, so we can get something. We ran out of folder, but we're going to try.
Okay, those just coming in, if you did not get a ticket, raise your hand. She'll bring you one. I think right here she's got her hand up. Also, I don't have everybody back in here, so I'm having to wait a moment. Okay, at this moment, we're asking for anybody that did not get a ticket to raise your hand so they can give you one. But while I'm waiting for a few more to come back in, there's a couple of things, and somebody pointed it out. I mentioned it, but I did not use an illustration. On the weightlifting, you can use isometric exercises. What does that mean? For example, you can simply hold your arm here, pull up and hold that for about 10 seconds. It's the same effect as lifting a weight. And it doesn't take a weight, although I think it wouldn't hurt us to get some kind of lift weight. It's the same thing. You can pull with your arm like this right here. You'll feel pulling with your tricep. You turn your hand over, and the muscle right here called the brachioradialis that comes across your forearm on the top. If you lift this way, it'll strengthen the arm that better than just the bicep, okay? Those that are coming in, raise your hand if you did not get a ticket for the drawings at the end. Okay, here's the other problem. And I'm going to ask somebody after a while, not Rosalind because she's busy, if you'll count and let's see how many people we have. We ran off 100 folders. And if you took more than one per family, we need one of those back. But if we didn't, we'd simply run out. So Rosalind, I guess, will take charge of running some of these off, and maybe next week you could pick up one if you did not get one, if you're here by yourself or whatever. If that's the case, the largest I ever had in 28 years was 105, and that was at Duluth, and I told them a moment ago. In that group, it was 100 women and only 5 men. At least we have a good balance here today of women and men, okay? One thing I did not mention, and again, it was my fault, that is the breathing when you're walking. Now, I know when you're out here walking, you like to go walk and talk, but you really need to concentrate on deep breathing. See, aerobic exercise will force that. In other words, even if you can't walk very fast, you want to breathe deeply. All right, let's everybody stand up again real quick and hold on to your chair there so you don't fall. I want you to take a deep breath. Fill up your lungs. Ready? Fill it up and breathe out slowly through your mouth. Okay, again. When you think you can't squeeze any more in your lungs, see if you can. Kick it in with your stomach. Boy, like people do when they're singing. Okay, now you'll probably have to hold on the chair because you may get dizzy if we're not used to doing that, seriously. But, okay, you can sit back down. But here's my point. From now on, when you're going out for your walk or wherever you're training, concentrate on deep breathing. Don't just have shallow breathing. Don't just go, go. See what I'm doing? I'm deep breathing. And you can't do that when you're talking. So think about it. Take it seriously, like you're training for life, because you are. You can talk to people later and be friendly and all that, but I know what happens. People, especially I see, people out walking really fast and they're talking. That's fine, but we really need to strengthen our lungs. And I told you a moment ago the pulmonary rate. Okay. All right, we're going to switch now to nutrition, and we're going to start with carbohydrates. Oh, by the way, on the exercise, there is a few magazines that I have on exercise. If that's something, it's really, I don't have a lot of those, but there's some, and I think I saw a few somewhere else. And on the magazines, I would like each family to take one of these, but I really don't know if I brought enough. Boy, I just didn't have enough faith. This one is really shows a lot of research, and I had told you that I was going to do it, so let me go ahead and do it now before we start on nutrition. Let's take water. With the immune system, water, almost all of our body has fluid. Okay, we don't think of it that way. We just think about maybe our stomach or something, or bladder or whatever. But invariably, what have we been told about water? Well, research shows that 75% of Americans are dehydrated at any one point. Folks, that's 3 out of 4 people, not enough water. And 37% think they're hungry, so they eat more, which makes it even worse. So water drinking is a habit. The World Health Organization, whether we believe in it or not, but at least they've done some kind of sensible, it sounds like, they recommend that half your body weight in ounces. So if you weigh 100 pounds, that would be 50. That would be 5, 10 things a bottle during the day. Now that sounds like a lot because most of us don't do it. Or if you're 200, that'd be 10. But the truth is we need more water than we're getting. And it is a habit. It really is a habit. Some of the other things that we're not covering, let's take sunshine. When the COVID broke in 2019, the Adventist World Radio, along with the North American Division and General Conference, sponsored an 4 hours on Sunday night for 2 weeks. So it amounts to 2 hours on each subject, I believe. Of course, it was 4 hours, I believe. And they covered the things that you need to fight things like COVID-19. Now, back then, they didn't know what it was really going to come out to, because it came to be very serious. But we know that vitamin D is extremely important in fighting the COVID, or these viruses. The average American is very deficient in vitamin D. Now, in the past, we used to talk about being out in the sunshine to get vitamin D. Truth is, here in Atlanta, you probably get very little pure sunshine. I don't know what the pollution rate is, but would it be better if we got natural? Yes, but if you don't, you probably should take some type of some type of whatever you want to call it. You got to be careful with this. I actually made a mistake. 20 years ago, almost maybe 19 years ago, the conference sent me to see a doctor because I was already having the problem with my eyes, which is Stargardt. It's the worst form of macula. The government did a 5-year study and still came up with no answers. But they sent me to a doctor out west who I believe was on the right trail. He did natural blood, liver, and kidney cleansing, and I think I probably mentioned that earlier. But I started taking his natural vitamins that he had, and I think to this day they have kept me from sliding real fast, because a lot of times people my age have already completely blind, and I'm not. It's gotten worse just in the last year. As a matter of fact, I wore glasses, but the glasses were just making things worse. So my point is, I found out I was taking too much vitamin D. They do not recommend more than about 100 milligrams, and I was at 150. And I realized I was feeling not normal, which my kids would say that is normal, but to not be that normal, But I just didn't realize how much I was taking until one day I got to thinking about it, and I thought, I don't feel right. I wonder. And as soon as I made a change, I got back to feeling, kind of normal. So, but sunshine is important. Do the best we can on that. Temperate, that word is mentioned today in the Bible text I read in 2 Peter. And temperate means we usually refer to in the Adventist circles as not alcohol and drugs and smoking. But temperate really means balance, harmony with your body, keeping it all in balance, not going overboard in any direction, keeping it kind of everything working together, okay? The next thing there is air. I've already mentioned that earlier with the pulmonary rate index, and exercise is probably the biggest way to help that, unless you want to take oxygen. And that is get to moving, and it will strengthen the pulmonary rate system. I told you that my index is extremely high, and that's not an accident. Your body's going to react to proper training. Sleep is another one of these things that I brought Dr. Iacono in way back in about 2005 to camp meeting because he was the leading researcher in the world on sleep. He had done over 1,000 brain surgeries at Loma Linda, and he had done a lot of sleep research on sleep. And what he came upon, most of us have heard some of the terms, melatonin and serotonin. Serotonin is actually made during the daytime, believe it or not. And sun is a factor, movements, a lot of things are a factor. But the melatonin, he discovered, was made at night only in a completely dark room. He said even if you have a night light on, it would diffuse how much melatonin the body makes. Making the melatonin is a factor in making the serotonin. Serotonin cannot be made without some normal amount of melatonin. And that's just the way God has designed it. And melatonin is something that so anyway, he said, I've done a lot of research. He did this in regard to prisoners in a prison out in California that Seventh-day Adventists had something to do with for a while. Prisons never turn the lights off at night. And so he was able, it's a pretty good group to study to show the effects of melatonin and not having their body not making enough melatonin, and the serotonin, which can lead to depression and a lot of other negative things if you don't have the serotonin. He said, I did not do research in regards to the eye problem, but he said, I suggest melatonin. And so his research showed that you would get to 30 milligrams of melatonin and vitamin B6, 200 milligrams. He said to fight a lot of the diseases that are out there. Now, he was looking into all these people with brain surgeries. You could see the effects on the brain, and that's what led him to it. The tragic part of it is that right after he came and he was putting together all kind of stuff, he gave me videotapes, not videos. As smart as he was, he would fly in his airplane and put it on autopilot and go to sleep, and the plane ended up flying into a mountain and killing him. So he was never able to finish the research. But I do know that what I did, I started with 3 milligrams of melatonin, went to 5, took me a while to get to 8, then to 10, and remember, he wanted me at 30. And so I couldn't, once I got past 18, it had an opposite effect. It would wake me up completely instead of being sleepy. Today, now I take 30 milligrams at night, and it's just you're sleeping almost immediately. And but I mentioned that melatonin is a factor, at least in serotonin. So sleep, I was on the NAD committee with one of our leading guys at the General Conference who did research among airline pilots that fly overseas, and the people, the stewardesses, who fly 6 and 7, 8-hour flights. And what he discovered was negative effect. Well, he found the optimum level in you is going to vary from person to person. The optimum may be from 7 to 8.5 hours. He said if you get too much, it's as bad as if it's too little. So I think most of us probably know about what we need in order to feel really good. So it is a factor. I'm going to talk, in a few minutes, I'll just mention in regards to the immune system, okay? All right, back to here. I'm going to start with carbohydrates. Carbohydrates is made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Those are the three chemicals in food. Carbohydrates are plant foods. Plant foods. And the serious problem, of course, is type 2 diabetes. Now, type 1, as we all know, is a little different situation where the body is not reacting as it should and making. It's a different form of disease, okay? And basically, there's normally, unless there's a miracle, there's not a cure to that. So we're focusing on type 2 diabetes. Your body needs 30 grams of what? It's going to be converted to glucose. If you look up here, what does the first thing say up here?
Carbohydrates, sources of starch, sugar, and fiber.
Yeah, we're talking about sugar, starch,
sugar, and fiber.
And fiber. The fiber is going to become a real issue in just a moment in our explanation. Okay, go to the next picture, please. Okay, can you read that one? Rosalind, hold it up.
Fruits, vegetables, and cereal are the main sources of carbohydrates. 58% of total calories each day should come from these foods.
Okay. What we're talking about, when you eat plant foods, it's converted over to glucose. Okay, just keep that in mind, glucose. We all know that. And the ideal number is 70. Okay, that's the number you want to. Now, what we're going to discover in a moment, just as a factor, keep in mind that we normally think of too much sugar leading to diabetes. Well, there are actually some other factors. And these little booklets right here, and we should have enough of these for people to take one per family. This is from the Grundy program. The Grundy program is what the conference has been tapping into. Steve and Karen Wickham. They put this together 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. They now have changed the name to Reversing Diabetes Explained. And I'll just use one illustration of what can happen when you attend a Reversing Diabetes program. It is critical to have a cooking class following that. And I'm telling you today, Sylvia, I'm going to be talking to, because there's a tremendous meal here today, folks. One of the best I've tasted. I see people trying to do it, but sometimes it's not very good. That was very good today. And thank you. But what we're going to see here in a moment is the importance of fiber in the diet, okay? So let's go forward. And by the way, just keep in mind what it said. 70 is the range where you want it. Now, there are other factors. Heredity is a factor, and if you're a diabetic, you know some of the other things that doctors have told you. However, many doctors in the world will say you cannot reverse it. Now, you're classified as a diabetic, but folks, you can get completely off. I'm going to tell you a case. There in Catoosa County, right where I live, right outside of Chattanooga, I worked with the Ringo Little Church and the Battlefield Church. They're both about the same size on each end of the county. They're only about 8 miles apart. They didn't do it at the same time. In the spring, Ringo did it. They had 35 people. And then Battlefield did it in the fall, and they had 37. So in one county, there were 72 people, which is a pretty good size rate. Well, I met the very first night Butch Oliver. Butch had taught karate, and since I had taken that gave us something to talk about. He's a Baptist. He let me know. He had a personality like mine. E.W., you know, my dad's a Baptist preacher, and he said, man, this is really a good program. Well, 6 months later, following the Reversing Diabetes, here he comes. I hardly recognized him. He had lost 44 pounds in 6 months. I said, Butch, what has happened? He said, E.W., you've just changed my life. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I'm not even a diabetic. He said, I came to the program because my wife is a diabetic. She's on 1,000 units of medication, and I wanted to help her. And she had cut her medication in half. I can tell you that today she's completely off all medication. And so I actually brought him to the conference office. Now, I got to be careful I say this, so I'll just say it anyway. There was somebody on the executive committee, and I won't say whether they were in the office or laymen coming in, but I'll just say that I was on an all-meat diet, and I knew it was going to kill the person. And so I said to Butch, will you come to before the executive committee? And so he did. I said, Butch, tell these people, how did you change your life? He said, E.W., I just quit eating meat. And he says, I tell people at the Baptist church where I go, they keep wanting to know, how in the world have I changed? Folks, he's a missionary out there and he's still a Baptist. Every time I talk to him, we talk from time to time. Every time I talk to him, E.W., you've changed my life. And so I was preaching in that area, and I said, Butch, I'm going to be preaching. It's going to be a Baptist sermon. He came, and I didn't know if he was there or not. I'm shaking hands with people. There he was. E.W., that was a Baptist sermon. You even made a call at the end. Now when I call him on Sabbath, guess what he says? Happy Sabbath. His dad is a Baptist preacher. All I'm telling you, folks, that one day people like that are going to know where they've been and what they've learned. And so anyway, but that's just an example of how lives can be changed. Maybe not overnight. Neuropathy. They had a case where a lady was so bad, she had no feeling in her legs or feet for 20 years. For some reason, and you know how that works, she came to the diabetes program. I don't know if it was about 3 months in between somewhere, she saw Steve. Well, she came, I guess it was toward the end of the program. She came back and she said, Steve, you have really messed me up. He said, why? He said, my legs have really been hurting, my feet. He said, great. She said, what do you mean? You want me to have pain? He said, you told me you'd had no feeling for 20 years. Your body is adjusting. He said about 6 months later, they were in the parking lot, and she came running up to the car and said, I have no more pain. And to this day, she has no more neuropathy. And so we know that diet can be a factor. So let's go forward. What we're talking about now is keeping your sugar level below, well, once it gets over, if it's 130 all the time, like if you're doing testing tomorrow and it's, it's a regular, at a regular 130 or higher, you are regarded as a diabetic, and you already know that if you are a diabetic, okay? Pre-diabetic is anything over 100 over a period of time. And there's a lot of factors in that, so let's unfold it. Okay, let's go to the next picture. Okay, what we're going to do is go through 6 classifications of food. Now, this is in your photo, remember, in your outline. And so let's just start with the first section here. The first one is going to be grains, and we're going to compare the left to the right side. The extreme left at the top and the extreme bottom on the right, okay? So let's just give you a little idea of these foods. But I want to tell you right now, folks, that the biggest factor is fiber. Fiber is completely necessary to break down the glucose level or the insulin level, to break down the insulin level. I assume your doctor told you that, but not necessarily all. I got to tell you another story. Down in Dublin, Georgia, a little church, they had a diabetes reversal program. And the person came, and the doctor said he didn't know what to do to help this person. He heard it was a diabetes reversal. He sent the person over there, and the person's life was changed, just like I just said. So later, that same doctor had a person come, and he said, I can't help you. He said, but there's some people over here at the Seventh-day Adventist Church that can help you. And nothing's by accident. I'm telling you, it's a little church. 10, 15, 20, 25 members. And they had a trailer behind the church, double-wide trailer, and one day, not by accident, the lady was in the trailer doing some work, and there was a knock on the door. And this guy, she said, can I help you? He said, yeah, my doctor sent me over here. I'm a diabetic, and he said, y'all could help me. She said, well, you're coming at the right time. We're getting ready for a diabetes reversal class. And sure enough, that happened. So, but it's the fiber level that's critical. For example, we're talking about plant foods. God has put fiber in all of the foods He made. Apples have fiber in it. But when we squeeze it out and have the apple juice, there's no fiber. Now, if you're diabetic, you already know that. But folks, over a period of time, let's just look at some of the foods we may be eating to give you a little idea of what we're talking about. All right, what's the first thing listed up here?
Pasta.
What?
Pasta.
Oh, yeah, pasta. Okay. Pasta. Okay, the normal serving of pasta. Now here's where we get into trouble. The normal serving would be like about a cup of pasta, and your blood sugar level will raise up to what? 54?
64.
Okay. Now look at the bottom on the right, and I don't think I want the bottom right. What does it say?
French bread.
Yeah, French bread. Yeah, that's right. So if you had one serving of French bread, it'll take your sugar level to what? Now 136, your body can handle it, okay? But put the two together, now you've got what? 190, 200, and your body can handle it. But how many men are going to eat one slice of French bread? Hello? If you go to an Italian restaurant, I guarantee you're probably going to eat 2 or 3 slices, I think. So if you eat 2, see what you start doing? You start doubling and tripling these amounts. And that's okay if it's every once in a while. But what we've got to watch, folks, is every day, what are we totaling up? And after a while, we're just clogging our body. And the insulin levels, and you got this pancreas creating the insulin to handle it. And then you will learn in these diabetes classes what starts to happen. The cells start clogging up, and some of them may actually close down, and now you're putting more pressure, needing more insulin, and on and on and on. Now, is there anything in here like potatoes or rice on the right-hand side?
White rice.
White rice. Folks, I've been in India, I've been in the Philippines, I've been in Nicaragua, I've been in Bermuda, I've been in Puerto Rico. My son-in-law's from Puerto Rico. I know that the staple food is white rice in these countries. And for various reasons. But what does it tell you your sugar level goes up to every time you eat white rice? 126. Again, that's one little serving. I promise you, if I'm going to eat, I want a little more than just a little bit. Let's have it double. You know what I mean? So now you're up to 252 or whatever that is. So, look on the left-hand side. And what about brown sugar? What's the score? Brown rice, yeah. So which would be better from a sugar standpoint? Brown rice, but of course it's more expensive and so on, and there's different reasons. So you get a little idea. We want to start looking at what is best for our body. When I talk in a few minutes, and I'm going to kind of combine the discussion, when we talk about your level of fighting germs and fighting all these things, your immune system is designed to fight what it has seen before. Very interesting. If there's a new virus out there and they haven't seen it, the body, I found this startling, that the body actually remembers what it's seen. And the way that the whole system is designed is to fight any kind of germ, virus, or bacteria. But if there's one part of the whole scenario of things like water, exercise, all these things, and I would ask you to do your own research because I just don't have time to go into that. Usually we do an immune system just all in one day. But folks, it has to be in balance. And all the systems have got to be working or it will close down. If it does not recognize something and cannot, the body is just going to close down. And that's why we have problems like COVID-19 and all the variances. It can recognize the first COVID-19, but now we've got another, whatever you call it, variable, whatever out there. So, but again, exercise, water, and diet. It's recommended for the immune system to have vegetables, a wide variety of different colors of vegetables. These are things Seventh-day Adventists have been talking about all our life. We have it, folks, but are we? It's easy to forget it. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, what's the cereal? Is it cereal? Okay, the left-hand side, what's the food? Barley. Let's not use barley because the average person doesn't know what barley is. So let's go to the next category. So that is probably a little bit more indicative. I'm going to ask you sometime, folks, go down the grocery store line on the cereal line and look on the back of the cereals, and I will promise you almost every one of them list 10 grams or something for a smaller bit and little, but it does. But then you don't stop there. You got to read corn syrup. Then you got to read fructose if it's got some fruit. See what I'm saying? And start adding all this stuff up. And again, the average person out here in the country, out here in the city, doesn't know about that. They just go get it because it's good. You know, it's cheap. Get it for my kids. Fill them up. I catch a ride to the conference office sometimes at a great gas station there close to my house. And I've seen this more than one time where the lady drives in, 3 little kids follow. I know they're on the way to school. And guess what she's buying them? She's donuts, some kind of suckers, some kind of, it just kind of breaks my heart to see this, because the average person, I don't want to be sick, I don't want diabetes, but they've not been educated. And now, folks, heredity is a factor, and there are some cases very serious. I understand that, but we can. Our goal here is to give us hope, because if you're coming tomorrow to be tested, and I'll tell you, with Sylvia and your cooking classes that I hope y'all have here, we could start having food like you had today, and I promise you things are going to do better. Okay, next category. What's over on the right side? What's the second to the bottom one? What's that score? 119. Okay, 119. So you can see the variance again, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because you can get ideas. Let's go to the next category. What's that? Fruit? Is this fruit? Okay, the sugar in fruit is fructose. I didn't mention the different kind of sugars. The white sugar, we all know, is the serious problem, and that's what's in most of our candy and all these other things. That's sucrose, okay? Fructose is the sugar in fruit. And as I said a moment ago, God made the fruit, and he put that sugar in there. This is why it's important. You must have fiber to break down the fructose. Without the fiber, you're overworking your pancreas. And so there's all these little factors. It's not just the amount, it's what. You understand what we're saying, folks? And I'm on it. By the way, what we do this afternoon is just an overview. Any one of these things we've talked about, we need to study deeply ourselves, and we can do that, okay? All right, next category. Oh, on the watermelon, I forgot. What's the lowest one up there is...
Orange juice.
30, 31, and 32, what's the score? But look at one that's highest. This may surprise you over here, watermelon. 104, and folks, I'm going to tell you, I'm not a crazy eater of watermelon, but if I'm eating watermelon, I don't want one little dinky slice. I'll eat a quarter of the watermelon. Well, I don't mean if it's that big, but you know what I'm saying? So you see how we get into the volume of these things? Okay, what's next? I guess go to the next slide. I'm sorry. Is he on the next slide? Okay, in the category? Okay, so what do we got? Nuts up there on the left? And what's on the right? Okay, do we see any sugar up there listed? I'm sorry, potatoes. I'm sorry. All right, on the right-hand side, is there a baked potato up there? What's the score? 121. 121. White baked potato. Again, body can handle it. But look on the other side, sweet potato. What's the score? So, again, which would be better to eat? See, we say, well, the white potatoes taste better. So anyway, all right. You begin to see here, folks, we need to pay attention to menus. We need to pay attention to what's on the back. Look and see what's on there. I'll use my cell phone for something else in just a few minutes when we get to it. All right, next category. These are all the different sugars, right, that are listed up there. I've already mentioned the important part of exercise to diabetics based on what I told you earlier, and that is the mitochondria, that when a person walks after they eat, it'll bring the sugar level back down. And for diabetics, it's critical, although you may not feel like walking, and that could be a problem this time of year in the heat. I understand that, okay? So make sure, folks, pick up this little booklet. because, again, we're just doing an overview this afternoon. We're looking a little bit at these things. We're going to look about heart disease here in just a moment. So take this little booklet and hopefully, I'm not sure who you are using for your diabetes reversal program, but I would recommend Steve and Karen at some point. They've changed theirs to 8 weeks, 1 night a week for 8 weeks. We are scheduling, I'm actually going to pay for them to be up at Lavonia, up 85, starting this Tuesday after Labor Day weekend. And no, it's going to be, it's only going to be there. It's not going to be on the internet or anything. Okay, any more questions? Just a quick little, I may not have helped you very much, but I hope that looking at what we need plus exercise, that'll help you a little bit. So let's go to all right, questions. Well, I can't, you have to move your arms. Okay, go ahead.
I always take in the morning, like I chop a celery and a green apple with a lemon, and I put it in the blender. So I wonder if I'm doing the right thing. I take a smoothie, basically.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor, but I don't think I would recommend that. She said that she takes an apple, she's diabetic, and she slipped.
I can't chew the apple,
Yeah,
so I have to blend it.
Yeah, she purees it. I can't answer that question because I'm not an expert on that. I do not know. It sounds might be good, but I don't know. I don't know what it does to the fiber. That card I gave you, if you got my card on it, has my phone number. You can call me. I can talk to my friends unless there's somebody here that knows the answer.
I know you have to be careful, but tofu, is it a thumbs up for you or a thumbs down?
Again, I haven't done a lot of research on that, so I'm not going to answer. I love tofu.
I do too.
That's the first time I've ever had that question, so I don't know. All right, go ahead.
It deals with sleep, rest, and melatonin you were talking about.
Yeah.
What is the best time to go to bed so you can, have melatonin?
Well, that went back on the research that I saw, and Dr. Hargraves used to be for the General Conference, and there's been some discussion. I haven't seen the research, but I do know that he talked about it. Some people, that the earlier in the evening, the better. I know that Ellen White actually makes some comments on this. So I realize that for the average people who work and don't even get home till 6 or 7 o'clock, and all that, it can be a problem. But don't forget what Dr. Hargraves said. And he said there's an optimum level per person. That's what the research showed, and that can vary. For you, it might be 8.5 hours. For another person, it might be 8 hours. It's hard to pinpoint because of the body type, body somatotype. Body somatotype means basically what we're saying in a variation of size. I'm not an expert, on sleep. So I'm just giving you the overview on these things, and maybe you could check them out themselves. Is there another question? Okay.
Yes. When you were talking about drinking the amount of water related to your weight,
Yeah.
a person that holds water retention, does that differ for them?
Well, obviously, you need to talk to your doctor about that. Because, if your body's retaining fluid, don't try to drink half of your body weight. I think they use some medication and some other ways to try to help that. So, okay, we're going to have to keep moving here in just a moment. I see arms moving, okay?
I just wanted to ask about you saying exercising after you eat the sugar or whatever. What
Sure.
about a person that's... Oh, you can't hear me? Okay, I was asking about exercising after you eat the sugar to get your index down.
Okay.
What about a person that's like in a wheelchair that can't really get up and walk?
Well, of course, a person in a wheelchair, again, if they even are just moving their arms, any kind of movement would help a little bit. I mean, obviously it's not quite the same, but okay, hold it a minute. We got another question. Okay, the something she just mentioned. It's critical when I said walking after a meal, but if you go and run after a meal and do heavy work, it'll actually close down the digestive system. So don't mistake that. You do not want to do intensive exercise. What it's saying is light exercise, like light normal walking, but don't go out and start running, because you're exerting, and then your digestive system will slow down or close down until you stop. So, okay, I would suggest that at some point, I would bring in somebody that is really, and I don't take this wrong for any doctors that are in here, but you know, a doctor may not be an expert in every field. Now, they may know the basic things, you know, and, you know, for this and that, and medicines you maybe need to take and so forth. But as far as taking this to another level of discussion, I think you need to bring people in who have done research, and it may be a doctor, on all the different factors. Now, sometimes we can get into the degree of big words and everything, and we get completely lost to what they're saying. So it needs to be on a level that we can understand. But that's the only suggestion I can make. And so we need to, if you don't mind, let's move on to the next area we're going to move to, which will be, now we're going to talk about heart disease. Heart attacks, as we know, is a hello? I may mess it up too. So one of the big factors here we're going to be talking about is protein. But let's just start off with what we're reading up here. This is, by the way, your heart is about the size of your fist, okay? Rosalind?
The human heart is about the size of your fist.
Okay. Next picture, please.
The opening of a normal artery should be about 4 times the thickness of the artery wall.
Now, I know you can't see it from the back, but it should be very open. We've already used this module to show the fact of how it's got to move through the arteries nice and clean. If you look at this one, you can see different levels of what we call plaque that builds up. It's the yellow stuff in this model, chemically speaking, and there's only one thing that forms that, and that's cholesterol. And I realize that this can be a touchy subject. That's why I'm going to show you a video here in a few minutes. But look at this one and read what you've got up there, Rosalind.
The opening of a normal artery should be 4 times the thickness of the artery wall.
Okay. 4 times bigger. Okay. All right. Now go to the next picture. And read that one.
There are usually no signs of disease until 90 to 95% of the artery is blocked.
Did you catch that, folks? There's usually no sign until it is 95% clogged. How many people do we know that have fallen over and died with a heart attack, and they had no idea that they had heart problems? Folks, I'm telling you again, mentioned it earlier, if you're over 40, I think you need to have a test every year. About a blood lipid panel where you find out what your sugar level is, find out what your cholesterol level is. I was down here in Perry, Georgia, and we were doing some testing and things in the community, and this young lady came in, and I think she was like 30 years of age, beautiful girl. So we did the test, and folks, her cholesterol level was like 300. Her blood sugar level was almost the same, and she had no idea. And again, we were in Vidalia, Georgia, and we had a little booth set up there. We had a trailer that was testing. And by the way, anytime you do testing, there has to be a health professional involved. And I use this as an illustration why. We had the nurse there. This guy came, and excuse me, his blood sugar level was 400. She said, "You got to go straight to the hospital right now. You cannot even leave here. Go straight to the hospital." And he didn't even know he had a problem. And they said it saved his life because he now started to get some training and got him on the right medication and everything else. What if that had been just a normal person said, well, that's a good high score. That's great. You know, you can kill somebody. I had a lady call me one day, and she said, Mr. Dempsey, I bought this little thing at the drugstore so I can do finger sticks. And I said, who is we? And she said, well, me. And I said, are you a nurse or what? Oh, no. She said, I just think this would be helpful. I said, you cannot do that. I said, risk management requires health professionals in the conference office. You could kill somebody. You can be sued. I can be sued. I mean, it's a whole mess. So folks, it ought to be helpful, but it's the truth really with blood pressures and everything else. That's just the rules, okay? So it may sound tough, but that's the way it is. But 95% clogged. I see it all the time. People, they had no idea. So please start getting your tests and know what's going on. All right, look at the next one. Go ahead.
This artery is 99% clogged with buildup of cholesterol and plaque.
99% clogged. If it's to your brain, you're going to have a stroke. If it's your heart, you're going to have an attack. The blood cannot get through there. Now, folks, where is this coming from? There is no cholesterol in plant foods. Seventh-day Adventists, we've been told this over and over, folks. Now, I know you're going to want to throw me out in a minute, but I have to just tell you the truth. I will use myself as example. I became a vegetarian when I was in high school. I think I told him at lunch this. 11th grade of high school, public high school, I loved hamburgers. I loved meat. And for some reason, I decided to get off of it. And my parents continued to eat meat. My cholesterol level stayed over 200. And folks, doctors will say today, and if you're a doctor, you may have said the same thing, get it under 200. No, the Framingham Heart Study, the largest heart study done in America, found not one single heart attack if cholesterol was under 150. How come I don't hear doctors saying that? So, you know, all these years I'm not eating meat, but I sure was enjoying eggs and cheese and milk. They're loaded in cholesterol. One egg has 200 milligrams of cholesterol. 2 eggs, 400 milligrams. It's going to clog up your body. I don't care whether you like it or don't like it. It's the truth. And I mean, we're not just pulling this out of the air. I mean, it's a known fact. So people say, well, get it under 200 and take your medicine. Okay. Why take your medicine? What am I just, well, anyway. Okay. So what happened with me? About 20 years ago, I decided to try to get off these things. And I just loved Velveeta cheese. I just wanted to slice it and eat it. I had trouble. I had more trouble getting off of cheese. But I finally got off of it. We call it vegan. We can call it plant-based. You can call it whatever you want. But my cholesterol came under, all the way down at one point to 133, 144 the last time I tested it. Now, a while back, and there's a little catch here. Sometimes it'll say vegetarian. And what in the past, that vegetarian has meant basically not meat. But there might have been an element of cheese, eggs, or something in there. And they're starting to get strict on that now. Some of the what we call health foods that did say vegetarian, some of them are now saying whether it's vegan or not. So I noticed I was eating something, and my cholesterol went up to 156. I thought, wait a minute, what's going on here? So I made some changes, and sure enough, I was eating something that had some hidden stuff in. And again, folks, we're not going to live any longer, maybe. But, or we may say, well, you know, and in other ways, we say, well, you know, you're not going to be saved by what you eat or don't eat. We're not talking about salvation here. I'm talking about your diet as far as health is concerned. I'm going to show you the video in just a few moments, and you will hear him, and he is not even, I know he's not a Seventh-day Adventist. I don't even know if he's a Christian. All right, let's go to the next picture. Now, the big factor here is protein. I hear it all the time. In the sports world, you got to have a lot of protein. One of my sons is, at one time, he won the Presidential Award of Fitness at 96th percentile. I mean, I couldn't believe the stuff he could do. Well, he's older now. It's a very high stress situation. And he says, well, Dad, I got to have some more. He said, my coach tells me I got to have 200 grams of protein every day. I said, Eric, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Research will tell you. Now, first of all, the protein is turned over to amino acids. You can see that up there right now, correct? Okay, go to the next picture. Let's find out about how much protein we need a day. Go ahead.
A person needs approximately 1/3 of their body weight in grams of protein each day.
So that can be a little bit misleading, because in a moment we're going to talk about fats. And sometimes, usually if you're eating meat for the protein, you're also getting the fat. And fat, you're going to see it talks about saturated and unsaturated fat. Saturated fat, which is usually the meat, we need no more than 15 grams a day, and no more than 30, 45, or 50 in all day anyway, whether it's unsaturated fat or whatever. And now you double the protein, and so today athletes are being told the more protein you eat, the stronger you're going to be. Hello, elephants are the strongest animals in the world, and they don't eat meat. I mean, where did we get this idea? Because somebody told us that. And he said the coach told him. I said, well, the coach doesn't know what he's talking about. So I hope my son's just kidding me. I'm not sure sometimes whether he is or not, because he'll call and he'll say, well, Dad, I'm just cooking some good old meat out here. He says, I got to have it. So I'm hoping he's learned his lesson. Anyway, let's go to the next picture. Go ahead.
Proteins, meat and dairy products are high in protein, but vegetarian proteins such as soy products, legumes, and nuts are a superior choice. Soy products,
soy itself is a very strong amount of protein. Okay, in your folder here, and I missed this a moment ago, it's my fault. There is a sheet dealing with fiber and how much fiber you need in a day, and it gives the breakdown on fiber. So please don't miss that if you're a diabetic or interested in that. I didn't see, I just missed it. It's on the left-hand side there, the amount of fiber in different kinds of food. Let's go back to that just a moment. It says high fiber meals. It's got this picture on the front, because I would like for you to see here, before we come back to this, where we are, the fiber. For example, choose something there and just give me a little idea. How much fiber is in blueberries? How much? 3.3. Do you see anything there that's higher than 3.3? Oh, blackberries. What's that score? So technically, you can see a difference in these things. You can pick what you want, but if you're not getting enough fiber, especially if you're in the diabetic range, take something like this serious. And of course, you can get books on all these things in greater detail than what we've got. This is just to give you a sample, a little idea, okay? All right, now let's come back to the protein. That happened to be on the top. I didn't see it. The yellow sheet will show you a little comparison of the protein. It's the yellow sheet. Now it's very interesting that the film we're going to see in a few minutes, the average American today is eating about 150 grams of protein a day, about 150 grams of fat a day. Now, if we only need 30 to 45 grams, then you're getting a 5-day supply in one day. And you're going to see him say that right here on the video in a moment, because it's basically true. And again, we just kind of take it for granted. You've got also the yellow sheet right here that's talking about the right kind of fats. Can you go to the next picture, please? Is that fats up there now? Fats. Yeah. It's basically saying what I just said as far as the amount, 15 grams of saturated a day, 30 to 45 of the other things. Okay, what we're going to do is switch over And I need your help, Rosa. This one is broke, so we're going to have to be careful. I want her to come up, or you can help me in a minute. But before we do that, I want to do the same thing with the sugar. If you're interested, for instance, this is showing the amount of sugar in something. Can you tell me, Hammer, what is that subject?
Chocolate milk.
Chocolate milk. How much sugar is in that?
It's 24 grams.
24 grams?
Yes.
And what did we say about keeping the score every day? Glucose? 70. Okay, what's this one right here?
This one is sports drinks.
Sports drink, how much?
This is 35
35
grams.
You might want to look, I've got a board over here on sports drinks, you might can check that, but notice I've got two foods he's just listed, and we're already close to the 70 level. Watch this one.
This one is juice box
Fruit punch, there you go. Loaded in sugar, what's the score?
It's 27 grams.
27 grams, so those three together, you're already up really high. This one will surprise you right here. This is sweetened applesauce.
And it's 42 grams.
42 grams. You're very, very high there in grams. If we don't want more than 70 in a day, you see why you've got to read these labels, folks? Look at one more. This one, you say, well, don't be telling me about that one. What is that one?
This one is fruit yogurt, low fat.
This one.
43 grams, 45 grams.
Okay. And what is this one?
Okay, this one is chocolate cake, and it's 57 grams.
57 grams. You see how easy it is to total up large numbers? All right, now let's focus on the fat, and this is going to be a little harder because where the bottom part is broke. What I want to focus on is one hamburger right here, okay, and then the order of French fries, because people are buying a hamburger, they're buying one hamburger or two, and they come in different sizes. This is a normal, or what's called a standard size hamburger. So how much protein or fat is in this one?
15 grams for 3 teaspoonful.
Well, okay, teaspoons is easy to go with in some things, but on fat and protein, I like to go with the grams. Okay, 15 grams. Okay, we said 15 in saturated fat. Okay, what's this?
That's 24 grams.
Is that French fries?
That's cheese biscuit.
Look for French fries. I don't know where it is here. It's somewhere over here. Is that it right there? Well, we have two blind people up here, okay? French fries. Okay, French fries, one serving.
25 grams.
25 grams. So the hamburger and the French fries are at 40 grams already of fat. You're already at the level for most people. You remember, your body size is a variance on these things. But how many of you are going to eat one hamburger? You're going to eat two. And how many is going to eat 2 or 3 bigger French fries than this one? It's easy. You see what's happening, folks? The way we eat, I mean, it's unreal. Look at this in potato chips alone. What does that say? Oh, it's turned. That wasn't his fault. It was turned the wrong way.
11 grams.
11 grams in one small pack of potato chips. Let's take pizza.
17 grams.
17 grams. One slice. Now you tell me how many men are going to eat one slice. I'm going to eat the whole medium pizza if I'm eating it. So 4 times 17 is going to be 68. Folks, I hope you're getting the idea of what I'm talking about. It's just across the board. And we know it, but it's so good. How do we resist it, I don't know if I need, where is it? Oh. This is 5 pounds of fat right here. A big study done at Harvard Medical School. You notice I've said this before, Harvard Medical School. In regards to weight conditions. Now listen to what they said. 500 excess calories per day, based on large research numbers. If you get 500 excess calories in one day, you will gain, over a week, you'll gain 1 to 2 pounds. If you want to lose 500 pounds, you've either got to burn it up with calories and or burn up or take in 500 less calories. People ask me all the time, you know, how do I lose weight? Well, it's simple. Fat intake, burning up fat. Protein is a factor with it, of course. So just keep that in mind because in just a moment we're going to switch over to the film. I think we're doing okay on time. So let's go ahead and switch over, if you don't mind, upstairs to the video. Because this is going to summarize basically everything we've said. Now, I do want you to notice toward the end of the film that he's going to talk about something we don't very seldom talk about, and that is the problem of fat and protein in regard to cancer, but also watch what he says about the burning up of some of these other parts of our body, not just the cholesterol, okay? So this film is called A Diet for All Reasons. Dr. Clapper, K-L-A-P-P-E-R. You can watch it on the internet yourself. The whole thing is about an hour long, but we're only going to watch the part dealing with protein and fat.
This is a quotation I saw in medical school by Thomas Edison. It said, "The doctor of the future will give no medicine, but instead will interest his patient in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease." And one of Thomas's brighter ideas. And when I saw this quote in medical school, I just passed it right on by. I went to the University of Illinois College of Medicine in Chicago, and I was so into becoming a real doctor, and real doctors do real doctor things. They deliver babies, they fix broken arms, they sew up lacerations. That's what real doctors do. And diet was boring stuff. And nutrition, yeah, you send them down to the dietitian and they figure out a 2,000 calorie diet and don't bother me. And that's how I practiced medicine for the first 8 or 10 years of my career. Well, I have soon, or late, come to realize how important what we eat really is in the creation and prevention of so many of the diseases that we see today. And I'll tell you how I came to those realizations. Now, the North American diet has changed. This is not going to be a technical lecture, but I did want to show you this one graph because there's some very significant lines here. The two top lines, the lavender line and the yellow line, are the amount of plant-based foods that are consumed in the United States and in Canada as well. And this is back in 1909. You can see we were eating a lot of grain products. We were eating almost 300 pounds of wheat and barley and other grain products, and almost 200 pounds of potatoes a year. Look what happened in the intervening 85 years. Our consumption of wheat and grain products have fallen to half of their 1909 level, and our potato consumption has fallen to half of their 1909 level. Look what happened to the amount of flesh foods that we are eating. The amount of milk we consume has more than doubled. Our beef consumption's gone up by 50%, and our chicken consumption's gone up by 280%. We are eating a tremendous amount of animal flesh, and we have essentially exchanged a plant-based diet for a meat-based diet. And the results have been just disastrous for both our health and the environment. Consider how much animal flesh most North Americans eat. In their lifetime, the average meat-eating American is going to eat 15 cows. Going to eat 24 hogs, eat 12 sheep. She will eat 900 chickens and 1,000 pounds of assorted animals that either swam in the water or flew in the air. That is a tremendous amount of animal flesh to be pouring through the human bloodstream year after year. No wonder we wind up with clogged arteries and high blood pressure and cancers and a lot of other diseases, and I'll show you how those two are related. Let's talk about the health effects of an animal-based diet. Here it is, the great American dietary catastrophe in all its glory. I grew up thinking this is good food. What's for lunch, Mom? Oh, I got something good for you, son, she'd say. And she would give me some food like this. And my mother didn't know, and your mother didn't know. They didn't know that the sausages and the eggs and the ham were just loaded with fat and cholesterol. And this is a coronary artery thrombosis waiting for some place to happen. Now, what is the effect on your body when you eat food like this? Well, the effect was brought out very dramatically to me about 10 years ago. I was on the cardiovascular anesthesia service. That's the service that deals with people's hearts and blood vessels. And like all good anesthesia residents, I was making my rounds one evening to see my patients for next morning's surgery. And the last patient I was seeing, I pulled back the curtain and there was Mr. Phillips. Nice fella, but he was just huge. He weighed 290 pounds. And he was booked for a 4-vessel coronary artery bypass procedure. He weighed 290 pounds. 290 was also his systolic blood pressure. It was also his cholesterol level. It was also his blood sugar level. I call him Mr. 290. Nice guy, but really clogged up in his arteries. And because it was late at night, it was too late to call the blood drawing technician up to draw his blood test, I drew his preoperative blood work into a glass tube. And I put it out at the nurse's station, and later I came by to pick up the blood tube and take it down to the laboratory. And when I looked at the tube of blood, I couldn't believe my eyes. When you draw blood into a glass tube and let it sit there for an hour, it separates out into 2 parts. And the red clot settles to the bottom, and the liquid part of the blood, the serum, rises up to the top. Here you see 2 tubes of blood, and the tube on the left is normal serum, is normal blood. Here you see the dark red clot. And this golden yellow liquid, this is normal serum. This is what your blood is supposed to look like. But I looked at Mr. Phillips' tube and it was just shocking. The serum floating in his tube was thick and greasy white. It looked like Elmer's glue. It stuck to the sides of the tube when I shook it. I went back into the room. I said, Mr. Phillips, did you eat before you came to the hospital? He said, yes. I said, what did you have? He said, I had a double cheeseburger and a milkshake. And when he said that, I realized what I was looking at was all the fat in the beef burger, and the butter fat, and the cheese, and the butter fat, and the ice cream, and the butter fat, and the milk had oozed out into his blood and turned his blood fatty. It's a well-known clinical phenomenon. It's called lipemia, and it happens every time you eat a fatty meal, you turn your blood fatty, and your blood stays this way for 4 hours until your liver can clear it out of the bloodstream. If you are like most North Americans and eat bacon and eggs for breakfast and a cheeseburger for lunch and fried chicken for dinner and ice cream for dessert, you're keeping your blood fatty all day. The stuff never clears out of the bloodstream. You keep your blood fatty for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years. What do you think is going to happen to the arteries carrying all that fat? I will show you what happens to the arteries carrying all that fat in a few minutes, but it's a disaster. There's a lot of fat in the North American diet, and it's hidden in most foods. You can see the fat around a T-bone steak, but most of the fat is in the muscle of the animal, and it's hidden in the dairy products. And most of the folks who present food to us don't want us to think about the fat, especially the fast food industry. They really don't want you to think about how much fat is in their burgers and hot dogs, except one chain of fast food restaurants in Los Angeles. There is one burger chain that is very forthright about the reality of the fat content of their diet, and they come right out and tell you clearly on their marquee about the product that they're selling. Now, if you stood outside the exit door of this restaurant or McDonald's or any other fast food restaurant where people are shoveling in their cheeseburgers, if you stood at the exit door with a needle and a syringe in your hand and drew blood on the people walking out the exit door, what you would see is most of the blood would be as fatty as Mr. Phillips' blood tube. Now, they're all in there making the blood fatty. If you ever have a big cheese pizza and a bowl of ice cream afterwards and you feel a little greasy on the inside, it's because you really are. You really go greasy on the inside. Animal fat comes in 3 flavors in the North American diet. It comes in the form of red meat, and the fat is in the meat. It is in the fibers of the animal's muscle, and just trimming off the white fat around the edge of the steak really does not lower the fat and cholesterol content significantly of the meat. So red meat is the #1 source of fat and cholesterol in the North American diet. The second is the yolk of hen's eggs. The egg of a chicken is meant to hatch baby chicks. And the yolk of the hen's egg is one of the most concentrated globs of fat and cholesterol on the planet. It was made to power that baby chicken for 21 days with no other energy. And when you run egg yolks through your bloodstream, you turn your blood fatty, just like Mr. Phillips. And the third source of fat in the North American diet comes from that white fluid that comes out of the udder of a cow. Now, cow's milk is a high-fat fluid exquisitely designed for turning a 65-pound calf into a 400-pound cow in a year. That is what cow's milk is for. Now, whole milk has a butterfat content of 3%. That's the cream that rises up to the top. And you drink a 3% solution of butterfat, you're going to turn your blood fatty, as will a 2 and 1% solution of butterfat. But at the dairy, the butterfat is skimmed off and they concentrate it into huge vats, half the size of this room. And they concentrate the fat to 50, 60, 80, 90% fat. This stuff is so thick you can walk across it. Why do they do that? Well, they do that so you will buy it and eat it. The butterfat is mixed up with air until it hardens into chunks called butter. The butterfat is mixed with sugar and frozen and sold as ice cream. The butterfat is mixed up with cocoa powder and sugar and sold as milk chocolate. Butterfat is mixed up with bacteria and allowed to ferment until it turns into sour cream. A lower fat version is called yogurt. And the butterfat is mixed up with calf's stomach and bacteria and allowed to ferment for about 6 weeks till it hardens into chunks called cheese. These are all forms of butterfat. The folks at the dairy want you to buy the butterfat and eat it. And when you do, you turn your blood fatty. There's absolutely no reason to run butterfat through your bloodstream at any time, and I'm submitting to you that you'll be a lot healthier and happier if you do not. Cow's milk is for baby calves. You have no more need of cow's milk than you knew giraffe milk or horse milk or rat milk. Now back to Mr. Phillips. Nice fella, but I was impressed with all the fat in his bloodstream. We took Mr. Phillips down to the operating room, and I gave him 1,000 micrograms of fentanyl and put him to sleep, and the surgeon opened up his chest and opened up his aorta and opened up his coronary arteries. And what the surgeon started pulling out of Mr. Phillips' arteries were great, long, yellow, greasy, sausage-like formations of fat that look like this. What you're looking at is a plug of material called atherosclerosis. And this is the plug of fat that built up in a man's arteries. The artery was a tube coming out at you from the screen. The artery wall has been cut away, and you're just looking at the fat that built up. It started around the edge of the blood vessel and started moving in on the blood flow channel as the years went by. And the blood flow channel got smaller and smaller and smaller till only this dark red spot was left for the blood flow to come through. And when a clot formed here, it stopped the blood flow completely through that artery. And because it happened in this man's right coronary artery, it stopped the blood flow to his heart and bought him a ticket to the autopsy table. This is the #1 cause of death of people in North America. Every 30 seconds on this continent, Canada included, somebody grabs their chest and falls over with a heart attack. This is animal fat clogging up the arteries. When you send this material down to the pathologist and you ask him to analyze it, the report always comes back the same: saturated fat and cholesterol. It's animal fat. The pathology report never, ever, ever contains the words remnants of broccoli, rice, and tofu. It's animal fat. The good news is when you stop running animal fat through your bloodstream, this stuff melts away. This stuff will come off the artery walls, and arteries can open up. And Dr. Dean Ornish in California and Dr. John McDougall and a number of other physicians are now routinely reversing atherosclerosis, having people cancel their coronary artery bypass surgery because they've changed their diet and their arteries have opened up. That's the good news. Here is the process happening. Here are 6 arteries coming out at you from the screen. The dark red circle is the artery wall. The pink material is the atherosclerotic material clogging the artery. The white spot is the blood flow channel, which is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Any organ dependent upon this blood vessel for its blood flow is in trouble. Fortunately, it's a reversible disease. This atherosclerotic material clogs arteries all over the body. It's just a matter of which artery to which organ clogs up first that gives you the symptoms. If the yellow atherosclerotic fat builds up in an artery going up to the brain, you will suffer a stroke. If it clogs an artery going to your kidney, you'll suffer kidney failure or high blood pressure. If the atherosclerotic material accumulates on the walls of large blood vessels like the aorta that takes blood from the heart down to the abdomen and legs, the artery walls become damaged and weaken. They lose their strength. And the high pressure in the blood vessel causes the artery to balloon out, forming an aneurysm, which can then rupture, leading to emergency surgery or death. If the yellow atherosclerotic material clogs up an artery going to a loop of intestine, the general surgeon will open your abdomen and remove that loop of bowel. If the atherosclerotic material clogs up an artery going to a toe or foot, you will watch that toe or foot turn dark and gangrenous, and you'll sign permission forms for amputation. And if the atherosclerotic material clogs an artery going to the heart, you will suffer crushing chest pain when you walk, called angina pectoris. Or if it clogs the blood flow completely and damages the heart muscle, that is a heart attack. People, this is all the same disease. We are talking about animal fat, essentially clogging up the arteries throughout the body, and it's the #1 cause of death and disability in North America. And this is essentially a disease of people who eat animals and the products made from animals. You almost never see these diseases in pure vegetarians. And William Costelli, the doctor who runs the Framingham Heart Study, says he has never seen a heart attack in anybody with a cholesterol below 150, and there's good reason for that. Why does this happen? Because all fats are not created equal. There's a fundamental difference between animal fats and plant oils. Animal fats contain cholesterol. No plant food contains cholesterol in any significant amount. It is an animal product. And very importantly, animal fats are highly saturated. They've got lots of hydrogen atoms hanging on them, and that makes animal fats very stiff. In fact, animal fats are solid at body temperature. If you're in a kitchen on a summer day and you've got a piece of T-bone steak on the counter and it's 98.6 degrees out, the same as your body temperature, the fat on that beefsteak is solid. It's a nice white chunk sitting there. If you have a bottle of olive oil on the same table at that same temperature, it's liquid at that same body temperature. I don't know about you, but I don't want to eat any fat that is solid at my body temperature because it's going to start clogging up my arteries. And that's the beauty of plant oils. They're liquid at your body temperature. They really don't cling to your arteries. Animal fats contain a substance called arachidonic acid. And arachidonic acid stimulates the creation in the body of a substance called prostaglandin 2. And prostaglandin sets off lots of inflammatory reactions in the body that can irritate the blood vessels, perhaps contributing to atherosclerosis. It may well cause a lot of inflammatory reactions in the joints, the skin, the bronchial membranes, and other places. Plant oils have a substance called linoleic acid, and that gives rise to substances called prostaglandin 1 and 3, and these are natural anti-inflammatories. They soothe inflammation in the body. So people who are on more vegetarian diets have much less problem with inflammatory diseases. Fundamental difference. You have no need to take animal fats into your bodies at all, and I really suggest you meet all your fat needs, and we need about 50 grams of fat a day. Get it from plant oils. You find it in grains have oils, legumes have oils, nuts, seeds. There's lots of oils available in the plant kingdom. That's where you should meet your oil needs, not from the fat of animals. The other thing about fats is make you fat. Animal fats stick to you. When you eat fats of animals, those fats wash through your bloodstream, and as they as they flow through your fat stores under your skin, they stick there. You've got fat cells looking for pre-made fats, and you eat the fat of animals, they stick there. What you see hanging on this man's abdomen really isn't even his fat. That is the fat of all the cows and pigs and chickens and ducks and turkeys and other slow animals that were walking past his table when he had a fork in his hand. Not his fat. The good news is, if he changes his diet and starts eating rice and vegetables and good plant-based foods, this stuff melts away, and people get leaner. It certainly happened to me. Remember the old nursery rhyme of Jack Sprat, who could eat no fat, his wife could eat no lean? You always see Jack portrayed as a lean fellow because he ate no animal fats. Mrs. Sprat's always seen sitting down. She has a hard time getting up. Her knees hurt her, her blood pressure goes up, her diabetes gets out of control, so she's usually sitting down. The lesson of Jack Sprat was certainly not lost on me, because back in the operating room in Vancouver, here I was, and now I'm the anesthetist, and I'm standing at the head of the table looking down into the surgical wound, and I'm seeing all this fat in these people's arteries. And I did most of my growing up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin. I've been milking cows since I was 6 and driving tractors since I was 8. And not only was Mr. Phillips eating all these animals, but so was Dr. Clapper. And I was eating cheese and chickens and various other slow animals, and I was getting concerned. Not only should my patients not run all that fat to their bloodstream, but this old doc shouldn't either. So I said to myself, if you don't have to run all this fat to your bloodstream, must you? What is the nutrients in meats and dairy products that if you don't eat them, you're going to be deficient of? So I opened up my books on biochemistry and physiology and nutrition, and guess what I found? There is absolutely no nutrient, no protein, no vitamin, no mineral, no nothing found in meats and dairy products that you cannot obtain out of plant-based foods. Consider the biggest animals on the planet, elephants and buffaloes and giraffes. These are vegetarian animals. They grow to thousands of pounds of muscle and bone without ever eating cheeseburgers and pepperoni pizzas. We can do the same. We can certainly build our 140 pounds or whatever it is you need to build in your body. The human body has absolutely no nutritional requirements for animal flesh. If you open up Harrison's textbook of internal medicine, you will find no disease listed acute cow flesh deficiency. And there is no chronic chicken flesh deficiency. There is no such disease because we have no need for these substances whatsoever. Animal fats, they clog you up and they make you fat. Two good reasons not to eat them. Here's a couple of more. It seems to be fairly clear as study after study comes out that if you are eating large amounts of fats in your diet, you are significantly raising your risk for cancer. If you are a woman eating a lot of fat in your diet, and that's talking about the hidden fat in cheeses and meats, etc., you increase your risk of cancer of the breast. Here are some countries that are compared by how much fat is eaten versus how many women die of breast cancer. And you can see that the Americans and the Dutch, with their big dairy industries, lead the way in not only fat consumption, they lead the way in breast cancer deaths. Thailand is a Buddhist country. They eat very little meats and dairy products, and breast cancers are so rare there, if you find a case of it, you report it at grand rounds. This seems to be a disease of diet, of a high-fat diet. If I were a woman with breasts and I wanted to decrease my chances of getting breast cancer, I would get the fat out of my diet. And that includes excessive amounts of vegetable oil. You need a little bit of vegetable oil, but you don't want to slather 2 cups of corn oil over your spaghetti for any reason. Men are not spared the ravages of a high-fat diet either, because when a man eats lots of animal fats, those fats are turned into male hormones called androgens. And androgens stimulate the prostate gland to get big. In our society, when a man reaches 60 or 70 and his prostate gland gets big, his doctor puts his arm around the patient and says, well, George, that's just part of getting old, your prostate gland's getting big. No, it's not. That's 70 years of running androgen through that prostate gland. No wonder that gland gets big, and prostate cancer is the #1 killer of men. And if you compare countries of the world versus how much fat is eaten and how much men die of prostate cancer, sorts out just the same way. The more fat that is eaten in the country, the more the men die of prostate cancer. And again, it's a very rare disease in Thailand, where people eat rice and vegetables and traditional foods. So, animal fats. They clog you up, they make you fat, and they increase your risk for a number of types of cancers. There's 3 good reasons not to eat animal fats, and as I said, there's absolutely no reason to eat them ever. Now, I'm describing problems with eating animal flesh. They have too much fat, and that includes chicken and fish. Fish has a tremendous amount of fat and cholesterol in it, and chicken flesh is very fatty food. If you ever watch your mother make chicken soup, you ever see all that fat that rises up to the top there? Well, don't kid yourself that chicken is lean meat. It is not. There's just as much fat and cholesterol in chicken as there is in beef. Animal muscle is animal muscle, and when you eat it, it raises the level of fat in your blood, and you do not need it. There's another problem with eating animal flesh. It has too much protein. Now, when I was in medical school, I never heard the words too much protein. I thought the more protein, the better. Put them on a high-protein diet, make them strong. Tain't so. You better believe there's such a thing called too much protein, and most North Americans suffer from it. First of all, what is protein? Protein is the building block material that you use to make the hard structures of your body. Your fingernails are made of protein, your hair is made of protein, your bones are made of protein. It's the brick of our bodies, a solid substance. Now, you don't need very much protein during the day. You only need about 30 grams of protein a day. That's the weight of 10 pennies, okay? Imagine 10 pennies in your hand, that's how much protein you need. But look how much protein the typical North American consumes. On a typical North American eating day, a typical American who has bacon and eggs for breakfast and a glass of milk, who has a cheeseburger and milkshake lunch, and has a beefsteak dinner with a glass of milk and some ice cream for dessert, is clipping along at 150 grams of protein. That is a 5-day supply of protein. That is too much protein. Why? Because your body can't store protein. You can store fat, you can store carbohydrates, you can't store protein. So what happens? Well, your liver starts breaking down that protein, and as it metabolizes it, it releases all sorts of toxic nitrogen-containing waste like urea and ammonia and amino acid fragments. And these have a detrimental effect on the body because as all these amino acid wastes go through your kidneys, it makes you lose calcium out of your urine. Why does that happen? Because there's fundamental differences between animal protein and plant protein. And I'm talking about the protein in meats and dairy products. Animal proteins contains amino acids that have sulfur, and sulfur makes extra acid in the body. And as acids wash through the bone, they dissolve calcium out of the bones. Plants have much less acid. Animal protein is very concentrated. The muscle of an animal is the most concentrated protein on the planet, and so there's a big bolt of protein that goes into your bloodstream as soon as you eat it. Plant protein is mixed up with fiber. When you eat whole grain rice or whole grain barley, it takes hours for that to be absorbed into your bloodstream. The absorption time is much, much slower. So the less acid nature of plant protein and its slower absorption rate means it's much gentler in the body and it doesn't pull calcium out of your body. That's a very significant phenomenon. The phenomenon of protein pulling calcium out of your body is appropriately called protein-induced hypercalciuria, too much calcium going out in the urine. What I'm saying is, and it's well documented, when you eat a big bolt of animal protein, whether it be red meat or chicken or fish or even milk, the acid nature of the protein washes through the bones, dissolves the calcium, which then goes out in the urine. And what I'm telling you is that every time you eat a piece of chicken, and every time you eat a piece of fish, ladies, for the next 3 or 4 hours, you urinate calcium out of your body down the toilet. And the investigators who've documented this many times clearly say that high protein diets cause a negative calcium balance, even in the presence of more than adequate dietary calcium. Even if you are taking calcium tablets and drinking milk, protein is such a potent yanker-outer of calcium out of your body that you will not be able to keep up with the calcium loss. Does that ring a bell with anybody? It did with the investigators. They said that osteoporosis, thin, crumbly bones that fracture easily, would seem to be an inevitable outcome of continued consumption of a high-protein diet. In our society, we are told that the cause of osteoporosis is not chewing up enough calcium tablets or not drinking enough cow's milk. And you're really told to believe this. There's a lot of medical evidence that says this just is not so. And this was clearly shown, I feel, in a study that was released by Cornell University recently, done by Dr. Colin Campbell, where they investigated thousands of people in the Republic of China. And they found that in this country, essentially osteoporosis is unheard of. They don't get osteoporosis. And women make it into their 80s, having nursed 5 children, and they have nice, strong bones. And yet here is a country that consumes essentially no dairy products. The milk isn't available, the cows aren't available, the refrigeration isn't available. They get all their calcium out of grains and greens and fruits and vegetables, and they don't get osteoporosis because they are eating grains and vegetables, and it doesn't make them urinate out their calcium. But it's been clearly shown as the Chinese folks move to the cities, get more affluent, and start eating more meat in their diet, they start losing calcium, and then the osteoporosis appears. It's really becoming apparent that osteoporosis seems to be not so much a disease of calcium deficiency, it's a disease of protein excess. You see osteoporosis in the countries that consume the most protein. In the United States, in Scandinavia, in Europe, and in Australia. That's where you see osteoporosis. You don't see it in China, you don't see it in rural South America, you don't see it in rural Asia, where people are eating grains and vegetables. And I'll tell you, dairy products are no protection against osteoporosis because the Americans and the Canadians and the Scandinavians are the people who drink more milk and eat more cheese than anybody else on planet Earth, and they have the worst osteoporosis on the planet. And if dairy products protected you from osteoporosis, you wouldn't see it in North America. And you see just the opposite. Because there's so much protein in dairy products that it actually puts you in negative calcium balance, makes you urinate out your calcium. And Dr. Recker's study clearly showed this. They gave women 3 8-ounce glasses of milk a day for a year, and they were still in negative calcium balance because there's so much protein in milk. Don't rely on dairy products for your calcium. Get it out of grains and greens and fruits and vegetables, but most important, hold on to your calcium by getting all that chicken and fish flesh out of your kidneys and out of your body and out of your bones. There's been studies comparing the bone density of vegetarian women versus meat-eating women, and clearly the vegetarian ladies hold on to their calcium better than the meat-eating women because they're not eating all that protein. The third problem with the North American diet, outside of having too much fat and too much protein, is that it has very little fiber in it. Plant fiber are the starches and sugars in plant foods that are not absorbed out of the intestine into the bloodstream. They stay in the intestine. They pass through the intestine. These plant fibers draw water into the intestine. They make for a nice soft fecal material, makes for nice normal bowel function. And very importantly, when meat is eaten and the meat gets down to the colon, the large intestine, the bacteria in the large intestine break down the meat proteins and the bile acids that the liver secretes to digest them, breaks these substances down into cancer-causing substances, into carcinogens called benzopyrene and nitrosamine. And you smear these cancer-causing substances on the inside of your colon for 50 years, 60 years. What do you think is going to set off in there? President Reagan found out the hard way, as 60,000 North Americans do every year. They opened up his colon and found a big fungating cancer of the colon. This is essentially a disease of meat-eating people. You very rarely see this in vegetarian people because they're not smearing all that meat protein on the inside of their colon. Another good reason to consider eliminating animal products from your diet. You will substantially lower your risk of cancer of the colon. Numerous studies have now shown that. Why does all this happen? Good heavens, what a set of catastrophes to fall on you just because you want a cheeseburger for lunch. That doesn't seem fair, does it? Well, to me it seems pretty logical, because our digestive system simply is not that of a mountain lion. We are not carnivores, no matter how you look at it. In fact, if you compare the digestive system of man to a mountain lion and that of a true herbivore like a horse, you find we are far more like the...
We're going to stop this now, so appreciate it. Okay, we're pretty close to schedule. We started about 2 minutes late, so give me just a few moments. The overview we've looked at so far, let me mention again about the lymphatic system. We understand that God has made a system to fight germs, viruses, bacteria. The system has to be able to recognize what is happening. It also has to have the ability of all functions to be occurring. The lymphatic system that God has made is the big system that is designed to fight all these problems. The lymph nodes fights the microbes, the different part, the white blood cells are a factor. The red blood cells carry the oxygen, so you've got to have a balance of everything. So the ideal lymphatic system is to work all together. And I basically just alluded to that earlier. And I would ask that you maybe study a little bit of this. I wouldn't worry too much about, the fact is, the spleen, the lymph nodes, all these different things are designed to work. Basically, the lymphatic system has been designed, as some people describe it, as a garbage truck of the body to getting all the things out. It's important to balance the fluids, all the water, all these things have got to work. And that's why it is so delicate. And the only way all these different parts of the body, and I just mentioned it to some of the different organs, is to make sure that we're eating vegetables, nuts, plenty of water, plenty of exercise. It's the normal, right across the board. I don't care what it is, the same things we've been talking about. And so sometimes we think only about heart disease or type 2 diabetes. But right now, the immune system is extremely important. We did recently at the conference office, we did a conference-wide boosting the immune system. We had a very large number of people. So we probably will schedule one this next year in Atlanta, which will be focusing the whole day on the immune system. And so what we're going to do in just a moment is we're going to close with prayer. And then I'm going to let Rosalind help me as far as the tickets. I'm going to try to get you out pretty quick, but I've got to point out a few things, folks. Because of some of the big things we've got here, I am giving away this big family Bible. We're giving away, as I said over here, showed this to some of you at the beginning. Somebody might like this picture of Jesus. We've got some recent pictures from the J-Web pictures coming from space, way out there. So when your name is called, you're going to come up and get one thing, okay? As soon as we've got the bigger things drawn, then we'll be able to, we won't have to draw all afternoon. As soon as this is over, these two books, I've already mentioned this for Dr. Simon. And that's basically it, I think, as far as the bigger things. Now, when we call a number, and it's going to be the last three numbers on your ticket, the last three numbers, as soon as you get up here, we're calling another person, so it's going to go in fast. If you stand there, then you're not going to make it. You're going to have to make a decision real quick. As soon as we've got those bigger things out, then you can come up. But there's a few things I really need to ask you to consider. First of all, I talked about spiritualism this morning and the occult. I think every family needs to take this magazine. We need to be aware of what's going on, folks, in this. Also, one of the first books we sent, and I mentioned this morning, to people taking Bible students, is this book right here, The Passion of Love. There is a new magazine out. You may want to take this, just come out recently, on the 8 Secrets to Better Health and this. And also, there's one dealing with the COVID-19, and I'm not sure exactly where that is here. We just have to...
I think you passed it.
Okay, well. By the way, this is probably the best magazine dealing with diabetics from Wildwood. I would suggest you take that. And as far as we can go here, and we may run out of these, this is the one that has a lot of research on all the big things we've been talking about today. Okay? So when we're finished, after you have taken one thing, then you can come back and take some other things. Don't try to take one of everything, because there's some, I usually say maybe one magazine and one book on the personal ministry side and one each on the health side. Okay? I appreciate y'all coming. I hope this has helped. I do have some posters here if you have kids, but now taking a poster is the same as taking a book. So don't try to take everything, because everybody will run out. You understand what I'm saying? So if you've got children here today, then it's fine for them to take a poster. But just if everybody in here's got grandkids and everything else, we're not going to have enough for that. You understand? I appreciate y'all coming. Let's bow our heads for prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this Sabbath. It's been a long day. We've had an overview here of a number of things. We started off with the tremendous importance of exercise, whether it be dealing with heart, type 2 diabetes, the immune system, or whatever. So bless each person. Help us to look at what we can do and give us the strength to do it. Also in regard to diet, if we need to make changes, Lord, show it to us and give us the faith and strength to make those changes. Lord, we thank you for this church. We thank you for everybody that has stayed. And Lord, as they give out these cards for witnessing, I hope they'll take more than just one card to give to friends and relatives. It's an easy way to witness. So bless this church as we go forward. That means bless every single person here. Be with us as we go home. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, Rosalind, if you'll come up, where's our bowl at? Thank you. Okay, would you close your eyes and reach in and get one? And she's going to look at the last three numbers and come up quickly.
227.
227. Is 227 coming?
She's coming.
Okay, well, give her a chance to get up here, and then we'll call the next one as soon as she gets here close. Okay, go ahead. Look at the next person.
252.
252. Now come on over, because I've already called another number, so you may need to make a decision quickly. Now, of course, if you want the Bible, it's right here. Any of the other books that are more expensive, you can still come back later and get some other things. But right now, we're taking one thing. 252, are they on their way? Those I'm going to give away free, so why don't you take something else? You can all of you, I told you one family can take the Ministry of Healing.
6201.
Well, there's the Bible.
Oh, 201.
Here's these two. You can take one. You can't take both.
Okay, 201 is not good. 224.
Okay, he took the Bible. That's very good. Let's give him a hand. Keep calling. Keep calling.
229.
229. The big things I'm waiting on right now are taking one of the Simon books, one on health,
230.
one on prayer. And you can come back in a few minutes and get other things. What was the last number?
230. 206.
I couldn't hear you.
206. 23. Yeah. Next it's 206.
I would take this. This is the most expensive book. Okay, that's it. That means now that in just a moment, everybody can come up. And okay, wait, I forgot about the pictures. What? Okay. Now, there's no more expensive with here, but if you're interested in any one of these pictures right here, if you don't have to. Let me ask this question. Who would like to have this picture? Anybody? Okay, nobody's interested. Okay. All right, I'm going to let you come on up right now. Remember, you can take a magazine and a book off of there, magazine and book over here. Please take some cards to give away on Bible research. Don't take but one poster, please. If you want a whole box of cards, you can take a whole box or a few, and the boxes are open. That's right. They're spread out. They're scattered. Yeah, the ministry of healing are kind of scattered in different places, I think. Yeah, you can take only one spiritual book per person, please. Well, is there somebody else with you? Yeah, or come back in a minute. Give everybody a chance. Okay? Just take one book, please, to start with, because we can run out some of these. Let everybody have a chance. Yeah. Yeah, but I was saying, give everybody a chance. Just take one.
I'm asking you about it.
Oh.
What does that mean? Christ removed. What is that?
Oh, it's talking about the Ten Commandments. Some people, it's actually it's dealing with the Ten Commandments because we have them at all. You want a box or a card? Huh? Some?
Did you say one from this
Yeah.
morning?
Yeah. Yeah, if you want cards, folks, I'm telling you, this is an easy way to witness. Please take only one booklet until other people have a chance, and take one magazine. Don't try to take one of everything until everybody has a chance, please. Please take only one. Yeah. Take as many as you like. It's easy to get them out, I'm telling you. Okay. I mean, I give them cards. Just show them the prayer hands, Folks, please give everybody a chance. We've got so many people here. Take one booklet, one magazine, and then step back and let everybody else have a chance, and then you can come back. Don't try to take one of everything, please. Cards, yeah, I'll take as many as you want. I'll open some more if you want.
Oh, okay.
Intimate songs, sweet tender words, flowing between heaven and earth. You whisper to me and I sing you a song. As you play the music, I'm carried along. I am in awe, I am in love. Breathing you in, I can't get enough. Over and over, you're touching my heart as I'm captivated by all that you are. Can we stay right here in this holy place where you feel so near? I can touch Can the time stand still? Do I dare to ask? Can the world move on and this moment last? Can we stay right here? Stay right here. Here in your arms, I am at rest. My silence conveys what my words can't express. I am amazed at the wonder of you. To soak in your presence is all I can do. Can we stay right here in this holy place where you feel so near? I can touch your face. Can the time stand still? Do I dare to ask? Can the world move on and this moment last? Can we stay right here? Stay